Hello everyone, Xeno What If here. Bring in part 13 of What If the Transformers crash landed in Code Geass. Link in the description of the fanfiction of this What If. Listen here YouTube. I do not own anything and this is not a scam. Stronger, faster, deadlier. Colin's apartment was relatively small. With a conjoined living area that shared a space with the kitchen, sparing a sofa and a television in the living room area, with only 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, and a walk-in closet. But it was still welcoming and a nice place for Lelouch and Nunnally to stay while the investigation into Ashford Academy continues. Lelouch would sleep on the couch, which he was used to whenever CC stole his bed at the clubhouse, while Nunnally would sleep in Colin's bed as the redhead herself pulled out a sleeping bag and slept on the floor. Nunnally was at first concerned and felt like she didn't want to impose on Colin or her mother, but Colin insisted that was not the case. Mrs. Kazuki had instantly taken to the younger girl and was there to help whenever she needed. Lelouch of course was grateful toward Colin and her mother for allowing them to stay. Naoto used to take Ogi and me camping out in the woods. Colin told Nunnally after Mrs. Kazuki helped them and Lelouch to some tea. Camping? Nunnally asked. Yeah. You know, when you go out into a forest or something and spend a couple nights there. Colin asked. You never did anything like that. No, but a few times, Big Brother and I slept outside in the garden with our mother. Does that count? Nunnally asked. Not exactly, not when you're 10 feet from your house. Colin said with a small smile. So, what do you do when you go camping? Nunnally asked. Hike up the mountains, swim in the rivers and lakes, even fish a little bit. Colin explained. We ate around campfires and slept in our tents. Sounds like an experience. Nunnally replied. Lelouch honestly couldn't help but smile as he saw his sister getting along with Colin so well, and it was especially nice that Colin could be herself around Nunnally as well and not have that whole sickly girl facade that he knew she hated. However, there was a small crash which surprised the trio. What just happened? Nunnally asked. It was revealed to be Colin's mother as she had accidentally dropped the teapot. Oh dear, I'm sorry. Mom, are you okay? Colin was already on her feet, helping her mother up. Yes, it just slipped. Mrs. Kazuki responded. Here, I'll take care of it. Lelouch had already picked up a hand broom and dustpan. Oh, you really don't have to, Mrs. Kazuki tried to lightly protest. It's fine, don't worry about it. Lelouch said as he began to sweep up the broken teapot. Colin saw that Lelouch had this covered. Mom, why don't you go lie down for a bit? Alright. Mrs. Kazuki nodded as Colin helped her to her room. Is your mother alright, Colin? Nunnally asked as Lelouch had already cleaned up the mess. She'll be fine. Colin answered as she closed the door to her mother's room. Nunnally, can I tell you something? Something I'd prefer you keep to yourself. What is it? The blind girl asked, though Lelouch winced slightly as he had a good idea what Colin was about to say. After Naoto died, I wasn't the best daughter to my mother. Colin explained. Because of that, losing Naoto, and other things, my mom became hooked onto Refrain. Nunnally gave a small gasp as she had heard of that drug before and what it could do. We were able to get her off it, but it's taking some time for her to recover completely. We? Nunnally asked. Me, Lelouch, and a bunch of other friends of ours. Colin answered. Lelouch? Nunnally asked her older brother in surprise. The situation surrounding it is complicated, Nunnally. Lelouch tried to explain without going into details. But we put a stop to it before it got out of hand. Remember when I told you about how your brother and I met some other people who helped us see things through a different perspective? Colin recalled. Well, they've been more than helpful with a great many things, including this. I was actually planning on introducing them to you, Nunnally. Lelouch explained. But after your kidnapping, and the resulting investigation into Ashford, I decided to put it on hold for a moment and let things cool down a bit. Oh, I see, Nunnally said. Well, I trust you, Big Brother. As much as I'd like to meet these friends of yours, if you think I should wait, I'll wait. You are one patient kid, you know that, right? Colin said with a smirk, which Nunnally returned with a small tongue sticking out. While Lelouch himself was more than patient, but that incident with Mao made him realize that Ashford may no longer be the safest place for him and Nunnally to stay. If Mao could get in easily, then so could the Decepticons. Lelouch would tell Nunnally the truth about his identity as Zero, as well as the ongoing conflict between the Autobots and Decepticons, but he knew he also had to step carefully as to not reveal his identity to the enemy, which could put Cornelia and Euphemia in danger, as well as his friends in Ashford. So, for the moment, Nunnally's meeting with Optimus Prime would have to wait, but Lelouch was all the more eager to have his sister meet the father figure he saw in Optimus, a much better father than the biological one they shared. The next day, the Ark. Ratchet and Fix-It were currently in the laboratory of the Ark, working on an iteration of the synthetic Energon. Though the formula had remained incomplete due to Bulkhead no longer having the data from the cylinder, having a reliable fuel source was more than essential to the cause of the Autobots and Black Knights. Surprisingly stable, Ratchet observed upon looking at a sample through his own microscope. I'm not detecting any irregularities in the energy patterns. Fix-It reported. This might be a suitable batch. Ratchet, Fix-It. Shirley had walked onto the scene, standing on a small catwalk made for Minicons, over the laboratory table Ratchet was at. Is that synthetic Energon? She asked. Oh, indeed it is. Fix-It confirmed. Even if the formula is incomplete, that doesn't mean we shouldn't abandon it entirely. Is there anything I can do to help? Shirley asked. Shirley, while I do appreciate you wanting to assist, I don't see anything you can do. Ratchet said, however upon noticing her somewhat saddened expression, he had something else to say. However, if you wish to observe, we are preparing to test a sample. That seemed to raise Shirley's spirits a bit. Though she knew she was no scientist, she had found herself somewhat invested into this, considering it was her actions that allowed the Autobots and Black Knights to possess the formula. But of course, she wasn't about to brag either, considering her actions also lead to a near loss of Bulkhead. While she chose not to dwell on her past mistakes as everything worked out in the end, she learned from them and was eager to help her friends however she could, while making sure not to do anything reckless again. Ratchet had a vial of the green liquid that was known as synthetic Energon and injected it into a test engine device. Commencing Trial 1 of Formula 7 now. Fix-It reported as he was ready to record their findings. Ratchet, Fix-It, and Shirley looked at the engine as nothing appeared to work at first, that is until the engine sprang to life. Trail 1 of Formula 7 successful. Fix-It observed with a grin. It works. Shirley exclaimed excitedly. We gotta tell Lulu and Optimus. Nah, Ratchet brought the celebration to an end. This iteration of the formula requires further trial before we can even think about using it for fuel, ammunition, or first aid. Which is rather unfortunate since our own Energon reserves are at an all-time low. But I thought Kyoto was helping you to get more Energon. Shirley said. It's not that simple, Shirley. Fix-It explained. Kyoto is a double-agent branch within the Britannian government. They have to be careful or risk foreclosure, enclosure, exposure. And the fact that our warriors, both Autobot and Black Knight, are rapidly burning through our stockpile doesn't help either. Ratchet continued. Meanwhile, the combined forces of the Decepticons and Britannia severely outnumber us as they continue to run us ragged and grind us down. Natural Energon is in such short supply on your planet, and Megatron, through Britannia, seems to have his oily claws buried deep in nearly all the Earth's deposits. Fortunately, though, hope is not lost. Fix-It quickly said. Thanks to you, Shirley, we may be close to developing our own synthetic fuel, which can more than even the odds with the enemy. However, an alarm sounded through the lab, getting their attention. Ratchet gently grabbed onto Fix-It and Shirley before transforming into his vehicle mode to make his way to the bridge. By the time the Autobot medic made it to the bridge, he let Shirley and Fix-It out, before transforming to see Optimus, Zero, Bumblebee, Ironhide, Colin, RC, Cliffjumper, Rai, Bulkhead, Wheeljack, along with other Black Knights, including Ogi and Tamaki, already gathered. Looks like we got more Energon on the move. Ironhide reported. Tamaki groaned. Again, seriously. That's the 5th time this week. Optimus saw the coordinates on the bridge's main screen. Their recent activity suggests a familiar pattern. The Decepticons are desperately scouting for new deposits to mine. I thought they already had enough since they're in control of Britannia. Ogi assumed. Given all our recent activity against them, not to mention the growing resistance across not just Area 11, but other areas across the globe as well, the enemy seems to have their hands full. Zero said. However, upon noticing some of the smirks on his comrades' faces, particularly Tamaki, Wheeljack, Cliffjumper, and more than a few Black Knights, he had to speak before their hopes got up to high. However, this also means that our own Energon supply is also running low as we have even less than they do. So, we're going in? Cliffjumper asked. Correct. Optimus answered. Autobots, Black Knights. Optimus. Ratchet saw fit to notify his leader and friend. If an Autobot comes back wounded this time, well, as Zero has said, our own Energon reserves are nearly depleted. Understood. Optimus got the message. Prepare the ground bridge. Ratchet was at the console in the ground bridge bay as he opened a portal. He stood and watched as he saw the vehicle modes of his teammates, followed by a half-dozen Beret, along with the Gurren Mk2 and Gekka pre-production, and even Zero's custom Barai, all drive into the portal before it closed. The Autobot medic sighed. Sometimes, I wish I could do more. He said aloud. However, his optics widened slightly as he looked to his side to see an injector as well as a vial of synthetic energon still on his person. He must have taken it in the rush. Without even thinking about the possible consequences, his noble, but reckless desire to help his friends outweighing any logical choices, Ratchet had injected the synthetic energon into his arm. His optics turned from blue to green as he felt his head becoming dizzy before falling flat on his back, dropping the injector and vial on the ground where it shattered. Ratchet! Ratchet! Fix-It exclaimed in surprise as he and Shirley had walked into the bay just in time to see Ratchet fall over. They quickly made their way to him. Is he okay? Shirley asked as Fix-It took out his device to scan Ratchet. I'm not detecting any irregularities or injuries that might have occurred. Fix-It reported as Shirley had already climbed on top of Ratchet and made her way toward his face. Ratchet! Her cry was apparently enough for his optics to flicker open. Wake up! With a groan, the medic had awoken. How is that such small beings can be so loud? He questioned as Shirley climbed off him. Are you okay? Shirley asked urgently with Fix-It right next to her. We saw you fall. I'm fine. Ratchet answered as he was back up on his feet. However, something felt different than before. It actually felt good. For some reason, he felt stronger, maybe even faster. More than fine. His arm opened to reveal a scanner, which he applied to himself. Energy efficiency is up 30%. Motor functions optimal. He laughed triumphantly. However, he looked toward the human girl and Minicon with concern. Any word from the others? No, not yet. Fix-It answered as Shirley shook her head as well. Knockout and Breakdown were in their vehicle modes, alongside several Vehicons in their car forms, while also being chased by the entirety of the Autobot team and half a dozen Black Knights through a large and long canyon. The Nightmares all opened fire at the retreating enemy. While some Vehicons transformed to return fire, they were quickly gunned down by the Black Knight's magnesium ammunition. Pretty soon, it was just the Decepticons' resident dynamic duo, with the largest having an Energon cube strapped to his top. Knockout, can't we just bridge out of here? Breakdown questioned. This cube's putting some serious drag on me. The more we give the Autobots and their Black Knight buddies a workout, the more fuel they burn. And we win the Energon race. Knockout replied. Besides, here comes air support. More than a dozen flying Vehicons all descended from the sky in their jet modes right above the group of bots and knights. They immediately opened fire with their missiles, prompting the bots and knights to swerve and avoid the shots, while some Beret turned around to return fire at the enemy, but they proved far too fast in their jets, while RC shot further ahead in her vehicle mode with the Gurren right behind her. However, it soon became apparent that the Autobots and Black Knights were not the missiles' intended targets but the canyon walls. Once the missiles hit, it immediately created a rock slide from both ends as Knockout and Breakdown drove past the wall of rocks that quickly began to form. However, with RC and Colin being the closest, they both decided to gun it. Both the Blue Motorcycle and Red Nightmare rolled up a large rock that served as a ramp to allow them to soar through the air. Colin used the Gurren/Harkins to swing from falling rock to falling rock, while RC transformed and leapt from rock to rock herself. RC transformed back into her motorcycle form once she got to larger rock near the end and used it to give herself a speed boost to shoot further in pursuit of the enemy. Colin did a similar tactic as she used the Gurren's Radiant Wave Surger on the rock her Nightmare was on, causing it to explode and give herself a propulsion that had her land right behind RC before speeding her nightmare alongside her partner. Their friends however didn't get so lucky, as the Autobots were forced to transform, with the Black Knights hitting on the brakes in their nightmares before they could crash into the massive pile of rocks that blocked their path. They saw the Viacons in their jet modes fly over the pile as well. RC, Colin, fall back. Optimus ordered through the comms. You're outnumbered. We're always outnumbered, RC replied as she and the Gurren were in hot pursuit of Knockout and Breakdown. We need that Energon. The Gurren was already shooting at the Decepticon duo with her Nightmare's left arm-mounted handgun. However, the Decepticon pair was quick enough to avoid the shots. You guys know how much I love playing the hero, but we can't afford to be reckless right now. Even Cliffjumper knew when retreat was best. Zero immediately contacted the Ark. Ratchet, lock onto Colin and RC's coordinates and prepare a ground bridge. I'm locked on, Ratchet reported. RC, Colin, decelerate and prepare to return to base. Save it guys, we're too close. Colin stated. Come on, don't be stupid. Ironhide tried to tell them. Wheeljack, Bulkhead, can't we just plow through this? Rai asked as he readied his Gekka's Radiant Wave Surger. We go the explosive route, we'll cause an even bigger rockslide. Wheeljack stated. Looks like we're gonna have to climb up. Bulkhead said as the Autobots were already beginning to climb up the rocks as quick as they could, while the Black Knights each used their Nightmares/Harkins to traverse the walls on the sides. Meanwhile, as RC and Colin both sped desperately to get the Energon from Breakdown and Knockout, the aerial Viacons above them had already opened fire with their missiles. RC, incoming, Colin exclaimed as she tried to turn the Gurren around to open fire, but the missiles had already hit the ground underneath the pair. Despite their best attempts to avoid the blasts, both the Gurren and RC, who was forced to transform to normal, were sent flying and skidding across the ground. The Ark, Ground Bridge Bay. RC and Colin are down. Fix it, exclaimed upon seeing their readings. What? Are they okay? Shirley asked with worry evident in her voice. They're alive, but surrounded by multiple enemies. Fix it stated. A ground bridge portal suddenly opened, with Ratchet being the one responsible. Man, the ground bridge, he told the pair before transforming and driving into the portal. Back on the battlefield, the Gurren was already back on its feet, while RC had a bit more trouble recovering. However, it wasn't long before the pair was surrounded by a total of 12 Viacon troopers. Colin immediately readied herself, standing protectively in front of the downed RC, as the Gurren's Surger claw opened up, and the left hand drew a knife. Come on, you cons wanna go, let's go. Colin challenged as the Viacons prepared to open fire. However, a ground bridge portal suddenly opened up high in the air, with Ratchet's vehicle mode shooting straight out before he transformed and fell straight down. He crashed down hard into one Viacon before quickly getting back up to throw the Viacon into another. Before the second one could even react, Ratchet already moved to kick him down. Another tried to shoot him, but both Ratchet's arms immediately converted into blades before he quickly cut off the blaster arm of that Viacon and kicked him down. A fourth tried to shoot at him from behind, but Ratchet leapt to grab him by the head, lift him up in the air before slamming him down hard on the ground. Ratchet. RC looked in amazement as even Colin's eyes widened and her jaw dropped. The Autobot medic leapt into the air to deliver double airborne roundhouses to kick down two Viacons at once before leaping onto his hands and propelling himself feet first into another Viacon and delivered an airborne spin kick to knock the Viacon down as another tried to charge him. However, Ratchet rolled out of the way before jumping and flipping while airborne to grab the Viacon by his head while still in the air and flipped to knock him down onto the ground before Ratchet jumped up to deliver a powerful punch to cave the Viacon's face in. Three more tried to charge in and shoot him, but Ratchet drew his blades and worked to cut him down. Looks like the Autobots brought in a ringer. Knockout observed as he and Breakdown remained in vehicle mode. Well then, I'll ring his bell. Breakdown was more than eager to face another worthy opponent. However, multiple energon blasts and magnesium shots were shot at them and some of the remaining Viacons, courtesy of the remaining Autobots and Black Knight nightmares that had already made it over the pile of boulders. It'll have to wait, Knockout advised as he and Breakdown drove away with their acquired Energon cube. Ratchet had just thrown down another Viacon and quickly moved to kick its head clean off before leaping at another Viacon with his arm blade to sever his arm before standing on one hand and spinning his feet like a helicopter blade to knock down one approaching Viacon and cut him down with his blades before rushing at the same con he just disarmed to finish him off with an impalement. What appeared to be the last Viacon tried to blast him, but Ratchet was already on him to grab him and slam him down on his knee to shatter his back. Just as the others met up with RC and Colin, Cliffjumper and Bumblebee already helping the Fembot on her feet, they could only look in surprise at what was left of the Viacon squadron that Ratchet had just dismembered single-handedly. Even Lelouch was stunned. What just happened? Rai muttered. For the first time in my life, I got no idea what to say. Cliffjumper said as they saw Ratchet standing proudly over a deceased Viacon. One Viacon however appeared to remain alive as he tried to get the jump on Ratchet from behind, only for the medic to slam his fist behind him and take down the Viacon without even turning around. Hoa. The Ark, Groundbridge Bay. They're returning, Fix-It stated as he and Shirley saw the Autobots and Black Knight Nightmares return to the Ark via an open Groundbridge portal. Guys, what happened out there? Shirley asked. We only saw the gory aftermath, but I hear the dock was a one-bot wrecking machine. Bulkhead stated. Seriously, makes my handiwork seem like rookie material. Wheeljack added. Ratchet walked up and suddenly picked up Shirley in his hand, much to her surprise. Whoa. Hey kiddo. Ratchet greeted in an unusually friendly and energetic way before setting her down, with Shirley looking more than a little surprised. Alright, what the hell is going on? Colin questioned as she got out of her Gurren, and the other Black Knights followed with their respective nightmares. Since when are you capable of one-shooting a Decepticon attack squad? Ratchet smirked as he motioned for everyone to follow him before transforming into his vehicle mode and driving deeper into the Ark. Curious enough, the other Autobots transformed as well and allowed their Black Knight companions to step inside. Zero got inside Optimus along with Fix-It, Colin mounted RC, Rai and Shirley both got into Bulkhead, with Rai and Tamaki inside Ironhide. They, along with Bumblebee, Cliffjumper, and Wheeljack followed the medic. Ratchet had led them all to his laboratory before transforming, right as the other bots arrived and transformed themselves, while allowing the Black Knights present to step out. You wanna know my secret? Ratchet teased. Just a little something I like to call, Synth-N. He picked up a vial of the green liquid and tossed it to RC. From the data Bulkhead transcribed, RC questioned, though the formula was incomplete. Ratchet had a triumphant chuckle. Not anymore. Hot damn, Tamaki said with a grin. So what, we got Super Energon now? Wait, hold on, Shirley stated. I thought you said it needed further testing. It's true, we only went through one trial with this iteration of the formula. Fix-It added. What? Zero was more than a little surprised before looking at Ratchet directly. You injected yourself with an experimental formula, after only one test. Yeah, I gotta agree with Zero on this one, Ratch. Ironhide said as well. That was reckless of you, and you're never reckless. Guys, you didn't see Ratchet out there. He was in overdrive, RC said. If can make a medic wrecker material, I wonder what would happen if we all try this stuff. Wheeljack said with a smirk. Well, if that's the case, we should plug this Synth-N stuff in our nightmares. Tamaki was on board. We'd probably give that white nightmare a run for its money, maybe even take out a few Decepticons too. Colin smirked. Or give Ratchet more so we can take a vacation. Bulkhead said. Wait, I don't wanna act like a wet blanket or anything, but I think we should at least see if this stuff has any side effects. Ogie put his thought in. I'm with Ogie on this one. Cliffjumper agreed. I'd rather check to see if the bandwagon has any holes in it before jumping in. Agreed. Zero, Rai, Fix-It, and Ironhide said at the same time, with even Bumblebee nodding as well. When it looked like some of the others were about to protest, Optimus put the final word in. While I agree the initial results seem promising, but I recommend that further testing be confined to machines, not Autobots. He then spoke to Ratchet directly as he placed a hand on his shoulder. Outnumbered though we may be, old friend, we need a warrior in the laboratory right now, more than we need another in the field. However, Lelouch seemed to notice a small flicker of disagreement in Ratchet's optics. There was indeed something about Ratchet right now that felt off. Mount Haku was one of the more recent mining operations for Sakuradite by Britannia, however the area had been completely cleared for some unknown reason. The only activity appeared to be a gust of wind from some approaching fighter jets. At the lead appeared to be Starscream, alongside Thundercracker and Skywarp in their vehicle modes. They transformed, followed by a dozen Viacon troopers who also approached in their jet modes. And it seemed they had one more arrival in the form of Arachnid in her helicopter mode before she transformed and landed with them. "About time, you're way too slow," Skywarp pointed out. "For once Skywarp makes sense, your chosen vehicle mode Arachnid lacks thrust," Starscream added. "Perhaps you'd like to keep your criticism to yourselves," Arachnid replied. "Why are here again?" Apparently there was a distress signal sent out by the Britannians that attempted to mine this area for Energon. Thundercracker informed. "Military was sent out, they didn't report back. So now we're here to play rescue for the fleshies." Skywarp scoffed. "Since when we have been demoted to human babysitters? Since Lord Megatron made it expressly clear that we shouldn't antagonize the humans who so righteously deserve it." Starscream said in a tone indicating he wasn't pleased himself. "But why send us? Why not call his beloved Suzaku? He's always one to opt for rescue missions." "I suppose we're about to find out," Arachnid said as she appeared to lead the group towards a large hole that led deep into the mountain. Though Starscream was quick to make his way toward the front, refusing to be led by anybody else, earning a silent glare from Arachnid as Thundercracker, Skywarp, and the Viacon troopers followed. The Decepticons continued to make their way down the darkened tunnel through the mines. However, they each noticed something rather odd the deeper they went down. There wasn't a single scrap of Energon to be seen, which was confusing to say the least. The Britannians must have found something down here. But if it wasn't Energon, then what? Soon, they appeared to make their way towards a large cavern. Though Starscream was the first to step into it, his optics widened in surprise. "What is this?" Arachnid, Skywarp, and Thundercracker followed as they too looked in surprise at the sights of multiple Sutherlands. All appeared to be torn apart or broken in some way. There was well over 24 of them. The Viacons each had their Energon blasters out as all the Decepticons entered the cave. "Looks like a fight broke out here," Thundercracker observed. "Autobots. Black Knights," Skywarp assumed. Arachnid kneeled down to one Sutherland to inspect it. She had saw that its deceased pilot was missing his bottom half. His face widened with terror. "Doubt it. The humans were torn apart, something the Autobots and their Black Knight sidekicks aren't known for. So, then the question remains. If it wasn't the Autobots that did this, then who?" Starscream voiced aloud. One Viacon trooper found a smaller chamber along the wall he was closest to and decided to inspect it himself. He had to crouch down to peek inside, however all he seemed to see was nothing more than darkness. That is until a metallic hand suddenly reached out to grab the Viacon by his throat and pull him in. The Viacon's screams caught the attention of every other Decepticon as Thundercracker and another Viacon ran towards the soldier that appeared stuck halfway and quickly pulled him out, only to look in horror to see the Viacon's head completely gone. The thing that was responsible for it appeared to be a Sutherland that actually crawled out of the hole to stand on its two legs. Though its cockpit was opened, it appeared to stand completely on its own, much to the shock and surprise of every Decepticon present, even more so as its face opened up to reveal some kind of jaw with teeth on all ends. It leapt at the Viacon next to Thundercracker and bit down on his neck. However, Thundercracker was quick to pull the living Sutherland off and throw it back before opening fire with his Energon blaster to blast its head off, along with the cockpit, reducing it to pieces. What was that?" Starscream exclaimed as all the Decepticons present, even Arachnid, had been rendered speechless. Skywarp heard a familiar sound coming behind them and turned around to look in fear. Starscream." He pointed toward all the Sutherlands around them as he, Starscream, Thundercracker, Arachnid, and the Viacons looked in shock to see all the Sutherlands standing up on their own, almost like zombies rising from the grave. Even those that were torn in half stood on their arms as all their heads opened up to reveal snarling teeth and jaws. "What are you waiting for? Open fire!" Starscream screamed as he, Thundercracker, Skywarp, and the Viacons opened fire at the living Sutherlands that actually ran at them. Even Arachnid opened fire with her own Energon palms. However, some of these monstrosities continued to run, despite losing any arms and legs, and were only stopped when their head and/or cockpits were destroyed. But already 4 Viacons were already pounced on and were ripped apart by the monstrosities, teeth and claws. And that wasn't even the worst of it, some nightmare monsters actually crawled on the ceiling above the unsuspecting group of Decepticons. Thundercracker glanced upward however once he noticed some rocks falling down. Above us, he exclaimed in horror as the nightmare monsters actually leapt from the ceiling down toward the Decepticons. Skywarp and Thundercracker used their propulsion boosts on their feet to escape, but Starscream and Arachnid themselves ended up pinned to the ground. The 2 Seekers were ready to help them, if they hadn't accidentally backed into a group of nightmare monsters themselves. Thundercracker drew his blades and prepared to dismember them as Skywarp used his claws and bare hands to tear off the heads and rip apart the cockpits. Starscream struggled to keep the biting face of the Sutherland creature that was on top of him. "Get off me you, monstrosity!" he exclaimed as he converted his right arm into an Energon blaster and blew its face out. Arachnid was having similar trouble herself. Fortunately she shot her spider arms out to sever its arms first before slicing off its head. By the time the 2 got back up and grouped up with Skywarp and Thundercracker, all their Viacon escorts had been viciously killed, before they also rose from the dead and joined more nightmare monsters that tried to surround the 4 Decepticons. What in the name of the Allspark, is going on here?" Arachnid exclaimed as, for the first time in her life, she began to experience true terror. "Don't know but I wanna get out of here." Skywarp was already in panic mode. "We can't let a single one of these things reach the surface." Thundercracker stopped them from leaving. "Bring down the cave, then we'll contact Megatron." And while Starscream is obviously a coward, even he knew better than to leave creatures like these active when they could at least stall them before calling Megatron and let him deal with it instead. "Bring down the ceiling," he ordered as he aimed his missile wrists at the ceiling to open fire, with explosive results as Arachnid, Thundercracker, and Skywarp added with Energon blasts and missiles of their own to bring down the ceiling, already starting a cave-in that appeared to crush the monsters before the 4 Decepticons made a break for it back toward the surface. The Ark. Ratchet was currently inside one of the many cargo holds of the derelict ship, going over the details of his fight against the Viacons to both Wheeljack and Bulkhead. And then, he came right at me. And I, however, rather than simply tell them, Ratchet felt it was better to actually show them. "Well come on Bulk, come at me. You two, Wheeljack. Both of you come at me." "You kidding? You wanna take us both on?" Wheeljack questioned. "Yeah, we don't wanna hurt you Ratch," Bulkhead said, only for both him and Wheeljack to be slapped across the face by said medic. "I said come at me," Ratchet challenged as he took a combat stance. Wheeljack and Bulkhead both shared a look before they nodded to each other. Bulkhead's right arm transformed into a mace as Wheeljack was the first to charge with a punch, which Ratchet caught before spinning him around to throw and slam him to the other side of the cargo hold, crashing into a wall. Bulkhead was next as he tried to swing his mace at Ratchet, only for the medic to duck underneath it, and actually pick up Bulkhead with both his hands before throwing him at the surprised Wheeljack, causing them both to crash through the wall and into the hallway. "Ho-oh-ah," Ratchet exclaimed. "What the hell was that?" Colin's voice echoed as she and Rai came running onto the scene, along with Bumblebee, Cliffjumper, and RC. All 5 of them stopped in their tracks at seeing the downed wreckers. Are you guys alright?" Rai asked. "Peachy," Wheeljack groaned as Bulkhead pulled himself up first. Ratchet walked out of the hole, filled with energy as he bounced up and down with his fists at the ready. "Looks like the wreckers got some competition." "Wait, you did this?" Cliffjumper questioned. "But, Bulkhead, Wheeljack, they're wreckers, and, Rai stuttered, having no idea what to say. Even Colin and RC were shocked. Taking down an entire squad of Viacons single-handedly was one thing, but to take down 2 wreckers at once. "Yep, I'm a bit stronger than I used to be," Ratchet said proudly. "Also a bit faster." He threw his fist out in front of Bumblebee's face. "Think you can take me, muscle car? Number. I'm good." Bumblebee bleeped immediately. "Wimp," Ratchet mocked before walking past RC and clicking in her direction. "How's it humming?" "Did he just?" RC questioned as they all saw Ratchet walk away with perplexed looks on their faces. "Stronger, faster, studlier," Colin commented. "I know I was excited before, but now I'm not sure I like the new Ratchet." "Yeah, Same here. Bulkhead agreed as they all looked more than a little concerned. Ratchet appeared to be alone in one of the many empty hallways of the Ark, when he came to a stop near a wall, which was revealed to be a hidden storage compartment. Once he opened it, he revealed the contents to be a dosage of synthetic energon already inside an injector. I need to be at the top of my game. Ratchet said to himself. Our survival depends upon it. Without even thinking twice about it, the Autobot medic injected himself with the dosage of the green liquid. However, he didn't appear to notice that someone else was with him. Shirley had peeked around the corner to see what was happening as her eyes widened with shock. Ratchet did what? Ironhide exclaimed as Shirley immediately told those on the Ark's bridge what she saw, those present being Optimus, Lelouch, Ogie, Fix-It, and Ironhide. He injected himself with more of that synthetic energon. Shirley said, I heard him say that he wants to help us but, I don't like what he's doing. Shirley, you were right to tell us this. Optimus told her. It would seem this iteration of the formula is capable of more harm than good. Is it possible he's becoming addicted to this? Lelouch wondered. Can Cybertronians get addictions? Not with drugs or chemical concoctions like humans. Fix-It explained. But yes, Cybertronians can become addicted to other things including actions, witnessing something, and even interactions with others. What I don't get though is why Ratchet of all bots is doing it. Ogie said. I mean, he's always being careful, making sure to account for everything. So, why would he do something so reckless? Lelouch finished. Ironhide sighed. He always takes too much responsibility, even when it's not his fault. It's been that way ever since Bumblebee lost his voice. Ratchet blamed himself for that. But Megatron was the one who hurt Bumblebee. Shirley said. I'm sure Ratchet did the best he could. Indeed, he did. Optimus confirmed. Ratchet did everything in his power. However, as Ironhide said, Ratchet has a tendency to take responsibility. While such an action is noble, it also means he may blame himself for actions that remain outside his control. So, he's trying to make himself stronger to contribute more to our cause, regardless of the negative impact it's dealing to him. Lelouch followed Optimus' train of thought. Well, is there anything that we can do to help him? Ogie asked. However, before anyone could give an answer, there was a sudden alarm. Lelouch acted quickly to place his Zero mask back on as the other Autobots, followed by several Black Knights, including Colin, Rai, and Tamaki came in. What's going on? Cliffjumper asked. It would seem the Decepticons have located an Energon vein. Fix-It reported as he checked the readings. Everyone, get ready. We're going in, Zero stated. Hold on a sec. Shouldn't we wait for our secret weapon? Tamaki offered with a smirk. This mission is unlikely to require medical expertise. Optimus replied. But you never know if it may require additional firepower. Ratchet revealed himself, leaning confidently against the entranceway. Fix-It can handle ground bridge duty. Yes, I can. Fix-It confirmed. But Ratchet, are you sure you're up for this? He asked, as Optimus, Zero, Ogie, Ironhide, and Shirley looked to the medic with concern. Of course, I am. Ratchet confirmed with a grin. Time to put some hurt on those Decepticons. Hell yeah, let's lop some fenders. Tamaki cheered, while everyone else seemed more than a little concerned with Ratchet's new attitude. After a quick trip through the ground bridge to a more deserted area of Mount Fuji, Ratchet was at the lead, running faster than any nightmare could travel with Optimus, Bumblebee, RC, Bulkhead, Wheeljack, Ironhide, and Cliffjumper right behind him, along with Zero in his Barai, Colin in her Gurren, Rai in his Gekka pre-production, and other Black Knights in their own beret, including Ogie and Tamaki. Ratchet was practically bouncing with energy as he didn't just run, but actually leap from rock to rock, even flipping like a master acrobat on a tree. Look at the Doc Bot, go. Tamaki smirked. Can't wait to see what that synth N can do with our nightmares. Don't get too excited, Tamaki. Zero advised. We need to be sure of the side effects before we do anything else. The group came to a halt near the bottom of the hillside, splitting off into smaller groups to take cover behind some large rocks, with Ratchet being the closest and looking ready to charge in at a moment's notice. They surveyed the area to see only a small number of Viacon guards with a single mining drill working its way into a cliffside. Why are they hitting this area of Mount Fuji? Colin asked. I thought Britannia already got it all here. Apparently they missed a spot. Cliffjumper observed. Doesn't look like much though. Rai reported on his nightmares scanner. Honestly, seems like only 2, maybe 3 cubes worth of Energon. Yeah, they might hit a vein, but they won't find much of an Energon pulse, not out here. Bulkhead agreed. Scouting places already mined. I take some comfort in the fact that Megatron seems as desperate to find the stuff as we are. RC commented. Do you guys always talk this much during these missions? Ratchet questioned impatiently. Hold on Ratchet, before we do anything, we need a plan of attack. Ironhide tried to tell him. I have a plan, attack. The medic said before transforming and driving downhill straight towards the enemy. Lelouch sighed with annoyance and concern. Secure the area, he ordered as he and the other Black Knights and Autobots moved in as well. It wasn't long before the Viacons spotted them. Intruders, one Viacon exclaimed, alerting the others as they immediately opened fire. Ratchet continued to drive as he dodged all the Energon blasts with little effort before ramming straight into the Viacon in front of him, right as he transformed to pin him to the ground with his feet. It's all right, I'm an emergency vehicle, he said as he drew his blades to kill the enemy. The remaining Autobots and their Black Knight allies quickly arrived on the scene and opened fire, easily laying waste to the Viacons as they appeared to be severely outnumbered. However, Ratchet didn't join the fight. Rather, what caught his interest was the Decepticon miner that had chosen to abandon the site as he climbed up the cliffside. Ratchet narrowed his eyes as he ran in pursuit and began to climb the cliffside himself. It wasn't long before he got to the top and saw the miner running as fast as he could. Ratchet simply picked up a large rock with one hand and threw it. It only took about 4 seconds for the rock to score a bullseye on the miner's head and knock him down. The miner tried to pick himself up, only to get pinned back down as Ratchet placed his foot on his chest. Why the big rush? Just trying to get as far as I can from the Autobot stank. The miner said spitefully. Does your boss know you have a potty mouth? Maybe I should pay him a visit and tell him. Ratchet said. Get melted, wheel grinder. The miner exclaimed. Melted. Now there's a concept. Ratchet said menacingly as his arm converted into a blowtorch. I won't ask you a second time. Where is Megatron? Meanwhile, the Autobots and Black Knights had just finished off the last of the Viacons. 0, Optimus, the area is secure. Obi reported. Cliffjumper looked around however and saw that a certain bot wasn't with them. Where's Ratchet? Suddenly, everyone heard the sound of someone screaming coming from the top of the cliffside. Hold on, was that screaming? Wheeljack questioned. Optimus, eyes narrowed slightly as a part of him had a good idea what was going on, but he hoped he was wrong. 0, Ironhide, Colin, with me. Everyone else, stay here. The 2 Autobots and 2 Black Knight were easily able to climb to the cliffside, especially with Zero's Barai and Colin's Gurren. However, once they got to the top their eyes widened in shock, borderline horror, at what they saw. What the hell? Colin stuttered. That's all I know. Really? The miner said as Ratchet pulled away his blowtorch. Did he just torture him? Even Lelouch didn't see that coming. Ratchet pulled away his blowtorch, the miner looking worse for wear as the right side of his face seemed completely burnt. Now was that so difficult? Ratchet questioned as he drew his blade ready to execute the miner, but Optimus quickly stopped him. Ratchet, what are you doing? Optimus questioned as the miner used this opportunity to run away from the scene, but nobody chose to give pursuit. Getting results, Ratchet replied. In breaking protocol, Optimus stated. That was a Decepticon miner. Servant class, not warrior class. Oh, and let me guess, I'm just the medic. Ratchet practically spat. Ratchet, I understand how cruel the Decepticons can be. Zero said as he rolled his Barai around, his cockpit opening and allowing the revolutionary to stand up as he took off his mask. But there are lines that we cannot cross. That includes torture. Otherwise, we're no different from them. The Autobot medic actually gave a mocking laugh. Right, this coming from the person who can tell anyone to do whatever they want just by looking at them. My Geass is not the same and you know it. Lelouch stated. I might extract information from others against their will, but I don't actually hurt them. Oh really? Well, did your Geass happen to discover Megatron's current location? Well, I did, Ratchet revealed. And do you happen to know where there's a stockpile of raw energon ripe for the taking? I do. That's enough, Ratchet. Ironhide placed a firm hand on his shoulder. You gotta calm down. Calm is the last thing we need. Ratchet shrugged Ironhide off. Calm is what lost us Cybertron. The Khans have a warship, an army, a human empire that spans 1/3 of the planet under their control. All this energon scouting, you think Megatron isn't gearing up for something big? We're squandering our resources, chasing after his crumbs, when we really need to be hitting him hard and hitting him now. Precisely, where it hurts. Are you nuts? We can't go on a full-scale war with the Khans yet. Colin exclaimed. We're not ready and you know it. Colin is correct. Optimus agreed. A direct assault on the Decepticons will only provoke retaliation, and lead to incalculable losses. I will not endanger innocent human lives. Yet you seem to have no problem endangering our precious Black Knights. Ratchet scoffed. Just ask Naoto. Oh, I forgot, he already threw his life away. That hit Colin where it hurts the most. That's it. She was about to get back in her Guren's cockpit and teach Ratchet a lesson, but Lelouch rolled his Barai around to halt Colin's path as Ironhide put his hand firmly on the Red Nightmare's shoulder, while also giving Colin a stern look not to do anything stupid. You know your problem, Optimus. Ratchet spoke to his leader directly. For such a big, strong bot, you're soft. You didn't pound Megatron into scrap when you had the chance. Many chances, in fact. That is enough. Lelouch had instinctively activated his Geass out of anger. Not just from Ratchet insulting Optimus like that, but because Ratchet was his own friend. He had no right to insult him like that after everything Optimus did for all of them. Oh Lukey, Charles Z. Britannia Jr. is about to take my free will away. Ratchet scoffed at the glaring Lelouch. Your little, hypnotic suggestion won't work on me and you know it. Not unless you wanna end up like that raving lunatic, Mao. However, Optimus stepped in between the enraged Lelouch and Ratchet. The Autobot leader carried a firm tone, while also keeping his emotions in check as he spoke. I'm afraid that the synthetic energon has impaired your judgment, old friend. I am confining you to base until further notice. He accessed his comms. Fix it, bridge us back. A ground bridge portal opened in front of the group. Ratchet sighed. Fine. He walked right into the portal, though Colin and even Lelouch glared at the medic as he walked inside. Hey, you two okay? Ironhide asked with concern to the two Black Knights present. Yeah, I'm fine, Colin replied with a hard sigh. Been better, Lelouch also said. Ironhide gave a small nod as he was about to enter the ground bridge portal next, only for Ratchet to suddenly run out, pick up Ironhide with one hand and throw him toward Optimus, who caught him as he, Lelouch, and Colin saw Ratchet transform and immediately drive away at a speed faster than their nightmares could match. The Ark. All the Autobots and Black Knights from the mission quickly returned to the ship via ground bridge portal and made their way to the bridge where Shirley and Fix-It were waiting. Fix-It, locate Ratchet's signal immediately. Optimus ordered. Yes, of course. Though Fix-It was surprised to see Ratchet was no longer with them, he could only assume he was in trouble, likely from the synthetic energon, and immediately went to his own Minicon console to locate the medic. What happened? What's going on? Shirley asked. Ratchet's gone AWOL. That's what's going on, Colin exclaimed. What? The brunette exclaimed in shock. The synthetic energon is messing with his head. Zero explained. He's going after Megatron. Well, I say we let him. Tamaki stated as all the bots and knights looked toward him in surprise. What? I mean, if the Docbot is turbocharged, maybe he can actually take King Khan down for good. No, he can't, RC stated. If it were that easy to take down Megatron, don't you think we would have done that already? There's a reason Megs hasn't kicked the bucket during the war. Cliffjumper also said. He's probably the toughest Cybertronian out there next to Optimus. And even he hasn't been able to bring Megatron down yet. Seriously, even I could barely lay a scratch on the guy. Wheeljack added. Is he really that strong? Ogie asked. Megatron used to be a gladiator. Ironhide explained. He took on all kinds of Cybertronians and even other monsters 5 times his own size. Plus, he's almost died so many times, we've lost count. He was practically crushed by the biggest Cybertronian in existence, only to come back on his feet a few days later. Nearly every Black Knight present, including Ogi, Rai, Colin, Shirley, and even Lelouch underneath his mask, were more than a little surprised at this revelation, even Tamaki. "So, we better find the Doc Bot, then," Tamaki immediately said as he rubbed the back of his neck nervously. "Yeah, obviously," Rai told him. We have a problem," Fix-It said, getting everyone's attention. "I can't pinpoint Ratchet's coordinates. That bogus Energon must be scrambling his signal," Bulkhead deduced. "Keep trying," Optimus said. "We've got to find Ratchet, before he finds Megatron." The Decepticon mining operation appeared to be in full swing as there was more than enough Energon in this mine to fuel a small army 3 times over. Not enough to satisfy the insatiable needs of the Britannian Empire or the Decepticons, but still enough to mine. Viacon miners worked to cut away the Energon crystals, compact them into boxes, and prepare them for transport as dozens of Viacon troopers patrolled the upper levels. Among them was Breakdown chatting with a Viacon. "Yeah, she's kind of dumb and erring, and the extra arms are weird, but I find myself intrigued by her," Breakdown chatted. However, a whistle got his attention as he and the Viacon looked to see Ratchet entering the mine. The Viacon aimed his blaster, but Breakdown stopped him, wanting to take Ratchet on himself. "I was wondering when you might show." Breakdown however didn't notice the dangerous glint in Ratchet's green optics. "You call yourself a scientist?" Megatron questioned to the frightened Knockout. "You were supposed to have located a fresh Energon source, by now." "Apologizes, Lord Megatron," Knockout responded. "We got a little distracted by the new Autobot who attacked us." "Really? And what new Autobot would that be?" Megatron questioned. However, their conversation was interrupted by a weak and heavily beaten Breakdown who stumbled onto the scene and fell to the ground in unconsciousness to reveal his attacker. "Ho-oh, Ratchet smirked. "Well, Knockout pointed to the Autobot intruder. "That is your fearsome new adversary?" Megatron questioned before chuckling as if he had just been told a bad joke. "He's Optimus Prime's medic." "Oh no, Megatron, I am your Doctor of Doom." Ratchet smirked before leaping and delivering a punch to Megatron's face, which was enough to send him flying and crashing into a wall, much to Knockout's own surprise. For one of the few moments in his life, Megatron had found himself quite surprised. He even felt a small trickle of Energon run down his mouth. "All right then. For CYBERTRO." However, Megatron had easily caught Ratchet's fist and twisted his arm in a way that wasn't meant to be twisted, causing Ratchet to yell in pain. "Ratchet is rather more spirited than I recollect," Megatron acknowledged. "Chemical enhancement, perhaps," Knockout assumed. The Decepticon leader then punched his fist right into Ratchet's side, before pulling it out to reveal a gaping hole with leaking synthetic Energon, mixed with his own natural Energon, before throwing him to the ground where a puddle of the green substance was already forming underneath him. "There's your laboratory sample, Doctor. Find out," Megatron ordered as he began to walk away, literally walking over Ratchet's fallen form. "If a chemical can do this for Optimus Prime's lapdog," he chuckled evilly. "Imagine what it could do for our troops." "Lord Megatron, come in. This is Commander Starscream." The Decepticon second-in-command contacted him. "We require your immediate assistance to our location. And you may want to bring back up Soundwave, I need a ground bridge." Megatron ordered over the comms, and a ground bridge portal suddenly opened in front of him, allowing him to step inside, leaving Knockout to begin his work on the weakened Ratchet, who had finally regained his sense of reason. "Oh, Optimus, I've been a fool. The Ark, the bridge." An alert flashed on the screen as Ratchet's ID signal suddenly sprang online. "Ratchet's signal is online," Fix-It reported, getting the attention of all the Black Knights and Autobots present. "And he appears to be in grave danger. Prepare a ground bridge immediately, Fix-It," Optimus ordered. Zero, at the same time, accessed his communications so his voice could be heard throughout the Ark. "All available Black Knights report to the ground bridge bay immediately. We're about to storm a Decepticon mining operation. We're going in hot." Within the heart of the Decepticon mine, a ground bridge portal opened up as the every single Autobot, and a small army of Black Knight Beret, along with the Gurren and Gekka pre-production, all sped out guns blazing. "The Black Knights and Autobots have arrived." Tamaki's voice shot through his nightmare's speakers as the firefight went underway. The Autobots and Black Knights immediately making quick work of the Decepticons present. Meanwhile, Knockout had successfully acquired a sample of the synthetic Energon from Ratchet's wounded body. Doctor to Doctor, I must say, your contribution to the Decepticon cause is very much appreciated. Knockout gloated. I'll be sure to boast of your accomplishment when you're gone. His hand immediately converted into a buzzsaw. Which will happen in 3, 2, he was ready to execute Ratchet right then and there when he heard the sounds of gunfire and battle deeper in the mine. Scrap. Seeing his opening, Ratchet kicked Knockout back, forcing the red Decepticon to drop the vial of the green liquid. However, Knockout was back on his feet as he tried to rush Ratchet with his buzzsaw, pinning him to the wall. Ratchet pushed back Knockout by the throat with one hand while keeping the buzzsaw from coming any closer with the other. However, Ratchet had been considerably weakened from the loss of Energon and was quickly losing strength. The last of the Viacons was sliced by Rai with his Geass katana. Zero, Optimus, the mine is secure. Understood. Zero replied. Colin, Bumblebee, Ironhide, you're with me and Optimus. Everyone else, beginning securing the Energon. He followed the Autobot leader in his Barai alongside Colin in her Gurren, the Autobot scout, and veteran. Ratchet couldn't hold Knockout back any longer as enemy's buzzsaw grazed his face slightly, however he gave a surprise headbutt, forcing Knockout to stumble back a bit. Knockout quickly recovered however and tried to slice his buzzsaw at Ratchet again, only for him to move out of the way, allowing the buzzsaw to become stuck in the wall, temporarily immobilizing Knockout as he struggled to pull it out. The wounded Ratchet stumbled toward the vial of synthetic Energon that Knockout had acquired. Knockout however gave a mocking laugh. What are you going to do? Drink it. Ratchet considered it for a moment, but he looked at the wound that was inflicted on him by Megatron. He only had himself to blame for that, he knew that this was all his fault, and the last thing he wanted was for Megatron to get his hands on a formula like this. He knew exactly what he had to do. No, I'm going to destroy it. He threw the vial at the wall, causing it to shatter and spill the contents, which melted into the ground. Knockout looked more than a little shocked as he pulled his buzzsaw from the wall. You idiot. Megatron will have my head. That appeared to have exhausted the last of Ratchet's strength as he fell on his backside. Before Knockout could even think about retaliating, he saw Optimus, Ironhide, Bumblebee, Zero's Barai, and the Gurren coming from around the corner. Not in the mood to get obliterated, the Decepticon medic transformed and drove away from the scene, leaving the 5 heroes to find Ratchet's unresponsive and wounded body. The ARC, Autobot Medical Center. Ratchet's optics slowly flickered open, this time they were their natural blue color. His wound was covered by an IV that flowed in natural energon. Fixit was present overseeing his recovery, as well as Optimus, Ironhide, Lelouch, Colin, and even Shirley. Ratchet. Shirley heard his groan and saw his optics open. Guys, he's awake, she said excitedly to the group as they turned to see him attempting to get up. Easy, old friend. Optimus placed a gentle hand on his friend's shoulder as he had a relieved smile on his face. You've lost a lot of energon, good and bad. I'm sorry. Ratchet apologized sincerely. I didn't intend to hurt anyone. I just wanted so badly to help us. We get it, Ironhide assured. That's the plus side and the downside of dealing with you, Ratchet. We're glad you wanna do what you can to help us, but you can't help with everything. Even you need help sometimes, that's why you got Fixit right there. It's true. Fixit added. I am your assistant for a reason. That means I can even scold you for acting so excessively, fecklessly, recklessly. Ratchet nodded before turning to some of the humans present. Colin, Lelouch, I'm so very sorry for the things I've said. I had no right to say any of that. I've made more than my fair share of mistakes and I've lost many friends as well. I hope you can forgive me. Colin sighed before she smiled slightly. Forget it. I mean if you were crazy enough to take on freaking Megatron, we'll just chalk it up to being hooked on that bad stuff. So, don't worry you hophead, we're good. She smirked. Like you've said, we all make mistakes Ratchet. Lelouch said honestly. I've made my fair share too, so I don't hold any grudges. However, your actions nearly cost us something irreplaceable. Optimus said to Ratchet. Our medic, and a most trusted friend. That previous statement caused Ratchet to smile. Ironhide smirked as well. While you did screw up big time, you actually did help us get a much needed energon supply. We've got enough to keep us going for some time. And for that, we should all be thankful. Lelouch agreed. The synthetic Energon formula clearly needs refining before it can be tested again. Ratchet said, earning either genuine smiles or sarcastic smirks from all those present. On machines, not Autobots. Let us take comfort in the fact that you were able to dispose of the quantity that remained. Optimus said. Back in the mine, there was however one tiny drop of the green liquid that remained in the broken shards of the vial. A drop that was found by Knockout, who could only smile evilly. Mount Haku. A ground bridge portal had just opened at the base of the mountain as Megatron and Soundwave stepped outside to see Starscream, Skywarp, Thundercracker, and Arachnid all sitting along the ground, each of them covered in scratches that were already leaking Energon. Even Arachnid was missing a couple of spider legs. Lord Megatron. Starscream stuttered as he tried to push himself up. It was horrible, it was. Spare me your rambling, Starscream. Megatron interrupted. What happened? We were inspecting a distress call sent out by the Britannian military after they investigated their own distress call in an Energon mining operation at this location. Thundercracker explained. And we didn't even find a single scrap of Energon down there. Skywarp added. Just a bunch of rabid nightmares that moved on their own that tried to eat us alive. Oh. Megatron raised a skeptical eyebrow. It sounds crazy, but it's true. Even Arachnid admitted it. Even our Viacon escorts were mauled before they actually rose from the dead. We were able to collapse the mine to hopefully stop these creatures from reaching the surface, but I fear not even that may stop them. Starscream said as he and his associates looked fearfully toward the collapsed entranceway. Megatron then turned to Soundwave, who ran the recordings of the 4 Decepticons through a lie detector program built into his drives and confirmed that they were indeed telling the truth. You actually speak true for once. Megatron acknowledged almost mockingly, but the 4 of them were too weakened to come up with a comeback. Very well, Soundwave and I will deal with these monsters, as you say. But by all means, please do not trap us down there. Megatron said, sounding sincere, only for that to be proven false as Soundwave had already deployed Laserbeak, which began to hover and circle around the 4, indicating that they were being watched. They weren't even in the mood to argue as they simply sulked and tended to their own wounds. Megatron and Soundwave walked toward the blocked entranceway, where Soundwave deployed Rumble. Time to do my thing. The blue Minicon said as he leapt in, punched, with his pile drivers to clear the boulders away, exposing the path to the darkened mine. Excellent work, Rumble. Megatron acknowledged. No problem, boss. Rumble saluted before return to Soundwave as the Decepticon pair descended down the path. Megatron, of course, led the way with Soundwave providing some illumination from some built-in lights on his shoulders. It was a long path with the only sounds being Megatron's enormous footsteps drowning out the more lightened footsteps of Soundwave at his side. The two had made it to what was once the site of the massacre, where a great deal many boulders all lain, all brought down from the Seekers and Arachnid attempting to escape. The site of the battle, I assume. Megatron turned to Soundwave. Any signs of movement? Soundwave did a quick scan of the area before a radar flicked up on his visor, showing that there was indeed something moving within these mines. What is its location? Megatron asked. Soundwave's visor shifted to reveal a 3-dimensional image of the mine, the red dot indicating the unidentified entity actually dwelling below their current location. Below us, Megatron noted. However, right as that observation was made, the entire ground slowly began to crumble before it completely collapsed. The two would have fallen had Megatron and Soundwave not transformed into their respective flying vehicle modes. The two of them shot down into the darkened pit that had formed, deep underground. They reached the ground and transformed, beholding the entity Soundwave detected as even Megatron's optics widened at what he saw. The entity could only be described as a nightmarish version of a Cybertronian combiner. It stood well over 100 feet tall. Its body appeared to be made out of a mesh of Britannian excavation equipment, Sutherland's and Glasgow's apparently used as mining nightmares, and a few Viacon parts thrown in there. All of it meshed together to form a large upper body, with the lower body appearing almost serpent-like and sticking out of a hole in the ground with a dark purple glow emanating from it. It had 2 large arms with a series of metallic tentacles stretching out of its back with a head made out of broken machine parts with 4 glowing dark purple eyes. Its mouth was something akin to four mandibles when it let loose an ear-splitting roar on the Decepticon pair. Despite the otherwise terrifying appearance of this creature, neither Megatron nor Soundwave seemed remotely intimidated. "Well, this is something new," Megatron observed. The monster lifted both its enormous arms to slam its fists onto the pair, but Megatron and Soundwave had both transformed to avoid it as they flew above. Megatron opened fire with Energon blasts at the creature, but the tentacles shot at him. However, Megatron was able to avoid the lashings as he transformed and drew his blade to sever most of them before falling toward the creature, slashing at its side, before landing on his feet on the ground. However, Megatron looked in minor surprise to see the wound actually heal almost immediately. He then ducked to avoid a swing from the monster's fist as he opened fire with his fusion cannon, causing the monster to roar in pain before it opened its mouth to actually fire a massive beam of dark purple energy. Megatron transformed once again to avoid the devastating beam that carved a hole through the wall. Soundwave meanwhile had deployed Rumble, Frenzy, and Ravage from behind the monster. Ravage and Frenzy ran quickly along the sides to shoot at the beast, Frenzy with a small Energon blaster on his hand, and Ravage with Energon blasts from its tail and mouth. The monster's tentacles shot from its back at the pair of Minicons, but they proved far too quick and were able to avoid them. Rumble, meanwhile, had made his way closer toward the monster, and almost directly under it. Time to shake things up a bit. Rumble used his pile drivers on the ground to create a series of tremors to shake the area around the monster. However, several tentacles emerged from its torso which lashed out and ensnared Rumble. "Hey! Get your tentacles off me!" Rumble exclaimed as he struggled in the monster's grip. Megatron saw the monster was more so focused on Rumble and resumed his fire with his fusion cannon on the entity. This appeared to distract it long enough for Soundwave to transform and fly up to retrieve his Minicon, while also deploying Frenzy and Ravage again on its face. "Oh, that is one ugly mug." Frenzy insulted the monster. "Let's fix that up, shall we?" He and Ravage began to tear at its face with either a pair of mini blades or teeth and claws. This annoyed the entity, but it wouldn't stop it. Soundwave landed right beside Megatron. "Any damage we deal to this creature heals the moment it is inflicted. Is there any sort of weakness?" The silent Decepticon had already performed a scan on the creature and shown a three-dimensional image on its visor of the monster, while illuminating a purple pulsating center at its core. Something akin to a spark. Megatron assumed as Soundwave nodded in confirmation. "Pull your Minicons back, Soundwave. I know how to handle this creature." Soundwave nodded before emitting a signal to call back Frenzy and Ravage as they continued to reshape the entity's face. "Okay Soundwave, we hear ya. We're coming," Frenzy stated as he and Ravage leapt from the monster and quickly made their way back to their master, where they reattached themselves along with Rumble who already returned. Megatron then ran towards the monster as it turned all its attention toward the Decepticon leader. At first, it lashed out all its tentacles, but Megatron drew his blade and sliced through each of them with little effort. The monster then reeled back its right fist to try and punch Megatron, however, Megatron actually caught the fist with both his hands. However, he felt himself being pushed back. Megatron gave a small pained grunt as he aimed his fusion cannon and blasted off the fingers of the monster, causing it to reel back in pain as it pulled back its fingerless hand. However, Megatron had actually leapt onto its arm and drew his blade once he ran up to the shoulder area. With one powerful and mighty slice, the entire arm was severed. The monster roared in agony, and this was the opening he needed. Megatron actually leapt into the creature, open mouth. The creature gurgled for a second, as though he was trying to spit Megatron out, but soon Energon blasts shot out of it from all directions of its throat as Megatron made its way deeper into the monster. All was silent for a moment as even the creature turned still like a statue, when suddenly, Megatron's blade pierced out from its chest, the monster roaring in absolute agony as Megatron himself shot out of the opening he made from the monster, rolling on the ground, completely covered in purple fluids, revealing something he acquired from inside the monster in his claws. It resembled something of a human heart, except it was made entirely out of black metal. It continued to beat for a moment before Megatron crushed it in his hands. The second it was crushed, the eyes of the monster went dim, and it completely fell apart. The separate parts that had once made its body became separated as it fell down into one massive pile of scrap metal. Soundwave walked to Megatron's side and turned to his master. Britannia believed this was a place to harvest Sakuradite, or Energon, but they might have stumbled onto something far more beneficial. Megatron said with an evil smile as he knew exactly how this happened. Only one thing in the universe could do something like this. If Cornelia asks about this, tell her that this mine was a trap laid by terrorists. And the soldiers were killed in the attack. Soundwave nodded as Megatron aimed his fusion cannon to blast away the scrap metal that was once the creature to reveal a small pit with an eerie purple glow emanating from it. Megatron walked toward the pit as he saw the source of the glow inside. It's been a long time. I had thought you lost forever when Cybertron went dark, but who would have ever guessed you'd be found on Earth? He said as he gazed at a large chunk of purple crystals that seemed to just emanate evil. Dark Energon. The Lord of the Decepticons broke out into a chuckle, which evolved into a full-blown evil laugh that echoed throughout the entire mine. Knights and miracle workers. The investigation into Ashford Academy had ended, though the military and the police couldn't find the terrorist Mao who stole the Sutherland and attacked Ashford. They had found nothing out of the ordinary in regard to the school itself, so they allowed classes to resume. Once all the students had returned, with Lelouch, Rai, and Nunnally returning to their residency at the school's clubhouse, the Geass effect wore off, allowing all the students and faculty to remember Lelouch, Nunnally, and Rai. And with some aid from Fix-It, they were able to have their personal data put back into the school's database, and it seemed to have worked perfectly, with no one the wiser. At the moment, Lelouch sat in the middle of the school's art studio in a position near identical to that of the Thinker with his hand underneath his chin, with more than a dozen students, including those in the student council, even those among the Knights of the Round sketching him. This of course also gave Lelouch some time with his thoughts. Though it's incomplete, the acquisition of the synthetic Energon formula should prove more than helpful in our cause. The young revolutionary thought to himself before glancing toward Suzaku. Of course, there's still the matter of trying to bring Suzaku to our side. He's been living with the guilt of killing his father for almost a decade. I can't imagine how much of a strain that's had on his psyche. But if that information is leaked to the wrong people, it could cause all sorts of complications that won't help anyone. Come on, Lelouch, quit moving around, will ya? Rivals complained. Oh, sorry guys. Lelouch tried to put himself back in the previous position. No, you were looking down lower. Gino pointed out. Like this. Lelouch tried to look down further. Incorrect. Look upward about 3.4 centimeters. Anya said robotically. Lelouch tried to look upward based on that description. No, now your expression is totally different. Rivals stood up and tried to make the adjustments himself. This was like this, that went kinda like that, and this was here. There. When he was finished, Lelouch looked nothing like how they started, complete with something of a clueless smile. God, I am glad Cliffjumper isn't here to see this. Lelouch winced inwardly. This also resulted in several complaints from the other students, particularly some of the girls who preferred the more stoic face he put on. Come on everyone, I prefer him looking clueless. Rivals argued. Yeah, he does look better like this. Gino agreed. Guys, knock it off, he's not your personal decoration. Monica chastised the two boys before smiling apologetically at Lelouch. Sorry about that. As this went on, Shirley and Rai exchanged something of a humorous smile as they sat next to each other. Despite all the intense life-threatening situations they went through recently, it was rather nice to relax a tad bit like this. Nina sat down in between them as she addressed the brunette. Shirley, don't you have math for first period? Don't you remember, it's art week? Shirley replied. Clovis, I'm sorry, Prince Clovis had declared it that. Shirley honestly felt like she had forced the word, Prince, out. Before meeting the Autobots and joining the Black Knights, she originally respected and admired Clovis. But after learning the truth about what happened in Shinjuku, any respect she had for him, as well as most of the royal family, had all but diminished. We will open Art Week with the dedication of the Clovis Memorial Museum of Art. The curator said as he gave the museum tour to Euphemia, Nonette, Darlton, and the sub-viceroy's personal bodyguards. You, Princess Euphemia, will select the first place winner among these submitted works. Euphemia caught a small, yet humble, painting of a house with a garden in a rather serene background. This picture brought a feeling to that of a nice day at home to the young princess. "Oh, this one's nice. I particularly like this painting," Euphemia said, even Nonette smiled a bit as she liked the painting too. "It's regrettable that our investigation revealed that the artist happens to be 1/4 the curator revealed. Both Euphemia and Nonette winced slightly. "Perhaps it should have been displayed here in the first place, then," Euphemia said. Though she held no discriminatory views whatsoever, she felt she had to put on this facade to appease the public. "Well, it's a delicate balance with our public," the curator said before turning to another painting, the largest painting in the museum. This one was that of Charles Z. Britannia raising his fist up high, as he was during Clovis' funeral. "Anyway, take a look at that painting right there. It was painted by the son of Marquis Nikolai." Euphemia's face became saddened, yet before she could say anything, Nonette placed a hand on her shoulder as the Knight of Nine addressed the curator. "I'm sure it's a lovely piece, but I think it would be best to allow Princess Euphemia to decide for herself." "Of course, Lady Enneagram," the curator said with a bow as he continued giving them the tour. Euphemia gave a small but thankful smile to the older woman, who responded with a smirk and a wink. The Ark. Ogi sat on a box in a cargo bay within the derelict Autobot ship as he opened his lunchbox to see what Chigusa, the name he gave the amnesiac Valletta, had made for him. Octopus hot dogs. That girl. He had a small smile on his face. "Your wife make that for you." Ogi looked back in surprise to see Ironhide smirking down toward him. "What? No. It's not like that," Ogi quickly said with a small blush on his face. "It was from, you know." Ironhide's smirk vanished. "Your house guest." Ogi nodded in confirmation. "Still nothing." "No, she doesn't remember anything," the Black Knight replied. "Say, Ironhide. I don't wanna sound insensitive or anything, but can Cybertronians have relationships like we humans do?" "Yes, we can." Ironhide nodded. "We don't have the same customs you humans do, but we can form relationships with others." "So, have you ever been in one?" Ogi asked as he rubbed the back of his neck. "Yes, actually," Ironhide replied, causing Ogi to look up in surprise as the veteran Autobot smiled reminiscently. "Her name is Chromia, you'd like her. She's tough as nails, and really enjoys kicking cons to the curb." "So, where is she?" Ogi asked, causing Ironhide's smile to fall. "Don't know. We lost contact after Cybertron went dark. She could be anywhere," the black and red Autobot answered. "I'm sorry to hear that," Ogi said sincerely, causing Ironhide to nod in appreciation. "Excuse me." General Kates walked onto the scene, getting their attention. "I hate to interrupt, but we have some very important visitors." He gestured behind him to reveal 4 individuals from the Japan Liberation Front, who bowed their heads in the presence of Ogi as well as Ironhide. "You're the 4 Holy Swords." Ogi stood up and bowed his head in response. "How'd you find them?" Ironhide asked Kates. "Through Kyoto," the old general answered. Ironhide however noticed something about them. "Where's their leader?" Katis's face winced, as did most of the other Holy Swords. "That's why we're here," Senba answered. "Lieutenant Colonel Toto has been apprehended. He sacrificed himself so that we could escape." Ashford Academy. Lelouch sat inside Bumblebee's vehicle mode as he spoke with Optimus over the radio. "You're certain?" he asked. "The 4 Holy Swords as well as Kyoto have indeed confirmed it," Optimus replied. "Kiyoshiro Toto has been captured and is scheduled to be executed tonight." "A schedule we'll have to change," Lelouch said with a smirk. "Get everyone ready, I'll meet you later this afternoon." "Understood." Optimus hung up. "I'm guessing you know Toto personally?" Bumblebee asked. Lelouch had a small smile on his face. "Yes, one of the few people who could challenge me at chess during my stay at the Kururugi residence. He even taught Hishogi. And he would be nothing short of instrumental in our battles against both Britannia and the Decepticons." "I heard about the miracle of Itsukushima," Bumblebee said. "Took down Britannia without using a single nightmare. Like to see him bring the cons to their knees." "I'm sure he will," Lelouch said with a small smirk. The passenger door then opened, allowing CC, in an Ashford student uniform, to step inside. "Welcome back. How was your trip?" Bumblebee asked the immortal as she sat down. "Quite eventful," CC replied. Those high eunuchs are arguably the most egotistical people I've met in my immortal life. Other than Lelouch, of course. She smirked. Aw snap. Bumblebee played a rapper's voice through the radio. Ha, ha. Lelouch gave a sarcastic laugh. But, I did end up meeting a soldier who is rather close to the current Empress. CC revealed. His name is Li Shink. Even though the Empress is technically a system orchestrated by the eunuchs, Shink and his inner circle of soldiers are more loyal to the Empress than anything else. A possible ally? Bumblebee asked. More than likely. CC confirmed. Good. Lelouch nodded. If things keep proceeding like this, we may soon need all the help we can get. Area 11 Royal Palace. Cornelia stood outside her palace as both Guilford and Dreadwing stood behind her. Today, Kiyoshiro Toto will be executed. Guilford stated. Even though he isn't that much of a threat compared to the Autobots and the Black Knights, it should deal a significant blow to the Area 11 resistance movement. I myself will be there. Dreadwing said. Even though he hasn't officially joined the enemy, it is likely they will be there to rescue him. I certainly wouldn't put it past Zero or Prime to attempt such a feat. Cornelia responded. Unfortunately, I won't be present for that. So, we'll have to find a change of executioner. Actually, Viceroy Cornelia, Lord Megatron has already chosen Toto's executioner. Dreadwing revealed. It will be Suzaku Kururugi. Though Cornelia wasn't too thrilled about being kept out of the loop, but at the same time, this might be a good opportunity. You know, I might actually approve of that choice. It'll give Kururugi a chance to test his loyalty. Viceroy. Euphemia called out as she walked onto the scene. When she spotted Dreadwing, she smiled and nodded at him, who returned with a small smile and nod as well. Sorry to summon you like this, how's everything at the museum? Cornelia asked her younger sister. The dedication is later on. Euphemia replied. Of greater importance though, the NAC reported there was unrest in Ishikawa. Probably backed by the EU or the Chinese Federation. Cornelia assumed. Given all that's been happening here in Area 11, I can't say I'm surprised. Still, it's our chance to bring Hokuriku under control. Euphemia's face slightly winced, knowing what her older sister meant by that. I'll leave Darlton, Nonette, and the rest of the knights here while I'm gone. If anything happens, consult them. Also, I don't want you making any dealings with the Decepticons. She turned to the one Decepticon present with them. I trust that won't be a problem, Dreadwing. None whatsoever. Dreadwing assured with a nod. One more thing. I noticed you still haven't chosen your knight yet. Cornelia handed Euphemia a binder. Once she opened it, she saw the photo ids and names of several Britannian soldiers. You may choose any one of them, they're all excellent soldiers from respected families. The Nemesis. Starscream walked onto the bridge to speak with his leader. Lord Megatron, I heard that you have chosen Suzaku Kururugi to execute Kiyoshiro Toto, whom the Britannians have recently captured. I have indeed. Megatron confirmed as he turned around to face the sniveling coward who was his second in command. Is that a problem, Starscream? Possibly. Starscream tried to voice his opinion, while doing his best not to step out of line and risk another beatdown from his leader. Suzaku is rather insufferable, to put it bluntly. I mean, sure, he has followed all orders we've given to him, however, when it comes to executing others, even those who are clearly our enemies, he always shows hesitancy. I've also done some research of my own to see that Kururugi has a history with Toto. If that boy is unwilling to kill enemies he doesn't even know, what makes you think he'll adjust that to someone he actually does know? He doesn't necessarily have a choice in the matter. Megatron replied. This is an official execution, and unlike in the heat of battle, he will be unable to avoid it. And his history with this Toto is exactly why I choose Suzaku to execute him. I do not understand. Starscream confessed. As you say, Starscream, Suzaku has a history with Toto. Megatron explained. By executing someone he was rather close to, who is now his enemy, it may give him the push he needs to fully integrate himself into the Decepticon cause. The humans have a phrase for this, burning bridges, I believe it is. I suppose that does make sense. Starscream acknowledged. But, what if Kururugi simply chooses not to execute this man? Surely you haven't forgotten his little episode back in Naratia. While his battle prowess is rather commendable for a human, his mental state, leaves a lot to be desired. If Suzaku is unable to perform the task, then you will bring him here to be confined. Megatron stated. I have Shockwave working on a special project, one that will enable us to see if he can truly contribute to us. Then who will execute Toto? Starscream asked. Perhaps, I should be the one to do it. Megatron looked at Starscream rather questionably. I went through such trouble to try and terminate that insect back in Naratia, it is only fitting I attempt to finish the job, wouldn't you say? Megatron gave a slight scoff. If you believe you are capable of doing so, then go ahead. Starscream smirked. Only if Suzaku is unable to perform the task. Is that understood? Yes, Lord Megatron. Starscream bowed as he still had a smirk plastered on his face. Ashford Academy. Yes, the pond does freeze solid in the winter. Nunnally said as she, Lelouch, Suzaku, and Rai sat outside the clubhouse. Although Big Brother scolded me once when he caught me skating on it. Well, considering what could happen if you fell in, I'm not surprised. Rai said. We had a pond too at the Kururugi shrine. Suzaku said. It was small, but I used to catch crawdads, all the time. Crawdads, huh? Rai asked. And what, you eat them? Well, I never ate the ones I caught. But they're actually quite the delicacy. Suzaku replied. You would catch crawdads. How? Nunnally asked. It's simple, you just tie a string to a frog's back leg. Suzaku answered. Huh, frog, as in those things that sit on lily pads and go, croak. Nunnally asked in surprise. Toads go, croak, Nunnally. Rai corrected with a small smile. Frogs actually go, ribbit. Suzaku had a small smile himself. Well, in Japan they go, kiro kiro kiro. Lelouch observed the playful conversation from the other table. Though he was happy that things were going back to what one could consider normal, he paid attention to Suzaku's expression the most. He still cares about Nunnally, that hasn't changed. Which means Megatron hasn't completely turned him, there's still hope. But if things keep proceeding at this rate, Nunnally won't be able to stay at Ashford much longer. I will be taking her to the Ark soon. I don't know if Suzaku will be convinced to leave the Decepticons by Zero, or any Autobot, but maybe Nunnally might. If she knows about the Decepticons and how evil they truly are, she might be the one person who not only convinces Suzaku to leave them, but even give him a reason to live. Hey Suzaku. Lelouch got his attention. I have to tell you. Suzaku. A new voice called to him, getting everyone's attention. It was none other than Cecile who ran toward them. Lloyd says it's urgent. Who's that? Rai asked. She's a soldier. Suzaku answered before standing up as Cecile arrived. Friends of yours? She asked upon seeing the other three teenagers. Yes. Suzaku confirmed with a smile. Cecile offered an apologetic smile. I'm sorry, but I need to pull Suzaku away from you for a while. Go ahead Suzaku, it's fine. Lelouch told him. Okay, see ya then. The Japanese youth nodded and was about to walk away. Please come again, Suzaku. Nunnally said. I will. Suzaku confirmed. Suzaku. Lelouch got his attention one last time. When you return, there's something I want to discuss, it's an important matter. Rai looked toward Lelouch in minor surprise as he had a good idea what it was about, but chose not to say anything without causing a commotion. Uh-oh, I'm nervous. Suzaku said in a joking tone before walking away with Cecile. I'll talk to you when you get back. Once they were gone, Rai stood up. Lelouch, are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. Lelouch nodded. Well, it seems that Suzaku is really important to them. Nunnally commented. I'm glad. Hey, Nunnally. Rai began. How would you feel if you thought that Suzaku was involved with some bad people? Nunnally's smile faded into one of confusion and worry. Is Suzaku in trouble? Well, no, not exactly. Lelouch quickly said. But, what if he's with some people who might try to make him into something he's not? What would you do? I'd try to get him out of it. Nunnally said immediately. Lelouch, Rai, do you guys know something? The two boys exchanged concerning glances. Well, remember how we said we had some pretty good friends? Rai tried to find the right words. Well, those people know some other people who might not be the best. And Suzaku might think they're actually good when they're really bad. I don't understand. Nunnally wasn't quite sure what to make of this. Lelouch kneeled down to his sister and gently held her hand. You don't have to worry about Suzaku. I promise we're going to help him. While Nunnally was still somewhat worried, she knew she could trust her brother, so she smiled. I trust you, Lelouch. If you say you can help him with whatever trouble he might be in, I believe you. But, if there's anything that I can do, we'll let you know, I promise. Lelouch said with a small smile. Girls' dorms. Shirley was getting ready to leave for the Ark, as she had looked behind her desk to find the note she had written after first learning Lelouch was Zero. When she pulled the note out and reread some of its contents, her heart wavered. When she wrote that, she was emotionally hurt and confused. But now, she knew who Lelouch really was and why he was Zero, and she would support him with everything she had. So, she quickly opened the window as she tore the note into tiny pieces before letting it blow away in the wind. She then heard a knock on her door. Just a minute. She quickly ran up and opened the door but was surprised at who was there. Monica. Hello Shirley. The Knight of 12 greeted with a smile, as she was in her Knight of the Round uniform. May I come in? Shirley winced slightly. I'm sorry, but I have to be somewhere real quick. It won't take long, I promise. Monica assured. Seeing nothing wrong, Shirley opened the door wider and allowed Monica to enter. Glad to see you and everyone else are settling in just fine. She said as she sat down on a random chair. Yeah, things have been pretty crazy lately. Shirley said as she sat down on her bed. So, did you find anything in your investigation? She asked, hoping they didn't learn anything about Lelouch, Rai, Nunnally, or Colin. I can't really answer that. Monica said. You know, military protocol and all that. Right, sorry. Shirley replied. But, there is one thing though I wanted to talk about. Monica began, getting Shirley's attention. When the military and I were investigating the school, we did some research on the students attending the academy, including you. That took Shirley by surprise. I heard about your father. The brunette gave a small gasp at that. I am so sorry Shirley. Monica said sincerely. It's all right, Shirley assured. These things, they just happen. They shouldn't. Monica muttered. To lose someone you love in a terrorist attack it's something that should never ever happen. Shirley wanted to tell Monica that the Black Knights and Autobots weren't really terrorists, but heroes and that the Decepticons were the real feat. But she knew if she did that, she'd end up revealing sensitive information about her friends which could put them in danger. I know how it feels. Monica continued. When I was little, I lost my father too. Shirley's eyes winded in shock. He dealt in arms dealing for nightmares to military contractors. He was killed when his base in Area 14 was invaded by terrorists. I know how it feels when you lose a parent like that. If you need to talk to someone, I'm here. I promise. Shirley had no response to give as she saw Monica stand up. I have to go, I just wanted to say that. The Knight of 12 commented. Even though I'm a Knight of the Round, I want you to know that you can consider me a friend. I'll see you later. Monica left, while gently closing the door. Shirley sat in silence as she let all that information sink in. She did feel a great deal of sympathy for Monica, and after spending time with her and her colleagues in the student council, she could tell that Monica, Gino, and Anya were not bad people. Perhaps she could talk with Lelouch and Optimus about them becoming potential allies, though she had a feeling that they'd shoot down the idea. It would still be an interesting idea to bring up. But no matter what, her loyalty to the Autobots, Black Knights, and her friends remained cemented. Clovis Memorial Museum. A press conference was being held at the museum before the ceremony would begin, and the reporters had quite a few questions to ask Sub-Viceroy Euphemia as Darlton and the museum's curator stood at her respective sides. Sub-Viceroy, is it true that no 11 companies were used in the construction of this museum? One reporter asked. Well, with regard to that question, we're looking into it right now, so we have no answer at this time. Darlton quickly and professionally responded. Idiot. A female reporter chastised the previous one as he sat down. Why bother asking Princess Euphemia about politics? Another reporter stood up. Carryman of Interstate, Your Highness, there have been rumors lately that you're close to choosing your knight. A knight, Euphemia stuttered slightly. Yes, you see, I'm. Ladies and gentlemen, we ask that you please limit your questions to those concerning the museum only. The curator told the reporters. Euphemia gave a small sigh, wanting nothing more for this press conference to end. She always hated being in the spotlight like this, almost as much as he hated being a princess of Britannia. The arc, multiple nightmares, including the Gurren Mk2, along with the Gekka pre-production, and even 4 new nightmares that looked almost identical to the pre-production, aside from their silver paint job and they each lacked a radiant wave surger, had all been gathered as several technicians, including Tamaki, were working on them, with Ratchet at a console on the side of the large chamber analyzing the data from these new nightmares. These new Gekkas should prove most effective in future missions. Fix-It said as he rolled up to Ratchet with a small handheld device. They're supposedly more advanced than the prototype Rai has been piloting, and the skills of the 4 Holy Sword pilots are nothing short of edible, fensible, incredible. Yes, when compared to other nightmares. Ratchet commented. But whether or not they can match against the Decepticons is real question. At the same time, the 4 Holy Swords, along with General Katais, were talking with one another at the other side of the chamber. Are you sure it's a good idea to throw in with these guys? Asahina asked. I can vouch for them. Katais assured. Their piloting skills are some of the best we've seen, not to mention the Autobots themselves make even the most dangerous nightmares seem like wind-up toys by comparison. What about those other living machines they fought against back in Naratia? Chiba asked. The Decepticons. Katais replied. They're supposedly the true masterminds behind Britannia and are every bit as strong as the Autobots themselves. If that's true, then us working with the Black Knights and the Autobots may be our best option. Senba commented. I wouldn't have brought you all here if I didn't trust them completely. Katais told his soldiers. They've saved the Japan Liberation Front from complete destruction twice already. And now we're about to work alongside them to rescue the colonel. Urabe said. Asahina smiled. Well, no matter where Toto may be, it's the place I belong. Hurry up, will ya? Tamaki exclaimed to some technicians working on the Gurren. It's almost time to move out. He climbed up into its cockpit. Look, how hard is it? Just pull the damn trigger and... However, once Tamaki pulled the trigger he accidentally raised and activated the Gurren's radiant wave surger and shot a small red projectile that actually shot toward Ratchet, who gave a surprised yell as he dodged the blast that blew up the console he was working on. Well, at least we know the radiant wave surger projectile function is working. Fix-It said with a nervous laugh. Ratchet, however, was far from amused as he glared at the one responsible. Tamaki. I needed that. He pointed to the blown-up console. The 4 Holy Swords were somewhat surprised as they looked toward Katais, who only shrugged slightly. Urabe chuckled. I think I'm gonna like this place. Don't tell me this is how you treated my children. A new voice spoke up, belonging to a young woman of Indian descent with long bright blonde hair and a purple bindi on her forehead. She also carried a brown Kisuru pipe as she was escorted by Kagaya and 2 other scientists. As their mother, I will not tolerate this kind of abuse. Mother. Fix-It, Tamaki, and Ratchet questioned at the same time. You've arrived on time. Zero walked onto the scene, alongside Shirley in her own Black Knight uniform, with both Optimus Prime and Bumblebee right behind him. Sorry it took so long, Zero. Kagaya smiled. But allow me to finally introduce to all of you, the creator of the Gurren and the Gekkas, and arguably the best nightmare engineer in the world. Rockshata Chala. Lady Kagaya, I think you're mistaken. Rockshata said. I'm the best nightmare engineer in the world. After seeing the Gurren and Gekka pre-production in action, I do not disagree. Zero said as he and Rockshata shook hands. She then looked up towards the 2 Autobots, particularly their leader. And you must be Optimus Prime, it's a pleasure. I've heard a great deal many things about you and your Autobots. The pleasure is ours, Rockshata. Optimus nodded. We've been interested in your work for quite some time. Particularly your work in medical cybernetics. Rockshata had something of a mix between an arrogant and humble smile. I do hate talking about the past. Well, if you're looking for a challenge, then how would you like the idea helping to create a synthetic Sakuradite? Zero proposed. That earned an intrigued smirk from Rockshata. Well, now you've caught my interest. Shirley looked towards Bumblebee as the scout leaned down to her level. She's taking being the presence of giant living robots really well. Shirley whispered. I'm guessing it has something to do with her working with machines all her life. Bumblebee bleeped. That, and I'm not exactly one who's easily surprised. Rockshata said, earning a surprised look from both Shirley and Bumblebee. You can understand what Bumblebee is saying, Shirley exclaimed. Of course, silly girl. Rockshata said casually. It's a relatively simple code to understand. So, your name is, Bumblebee. She spoke to the scout directly, who only nodded, not quite over his own surprise. It makes me wonder how an alien got his name based off an Earth insect. Perhaps Earth and this Cybertron have more than a few similarities. As much as I would love to discuss on such a topic, we do have a mission to prepare ourselves for. Ratchet said as he walked up. Apologies. Rockshata said. I tend to get carried away when I'm invested in something interesting, it's one of my very few flaws. Shirley looked to the side to see Colin and Rai enter, each one of them wearing a special kind of pilot suit with some kind of armor around the arms, legs, and chests. Colin's was red and Ray's was blue, and they both bore the Autobot Black Knight insignia on their right chest plates. Rai, Colin, you two look great. You look almost like superheroes. Thanks Shirley, but it feels a little tight, Rai said as he tried to stretch his limbs out. Yeah, is this really going to improve the interfacing system? Colin asked as she looked at her own pilot's suit. No, of course not. Rockshata answered, much to everyone's surprise. It's going to improve your life expectancy. Night had fallen as Kiyoshiro Toto had been confined into what was arguably the most secure prison in the entire area. He sat meditatively in his cell, while also bound in a straitjacket, as a guard walked up. I just heard they changed your executioner. The guard said mockingly. It's going to be Warrant Officer Suzaku Kururugi. You oughta be glad it's someone you know. Toto said nothing but looked upward in acknowledgement. Also, I heard that if for some reason that damn 11 doesn't pull the trigger, someone named Starscream is gonna be the replacement. Starscream gave an annoyed scoff as he paced across the rooftop of one particular building. What is taking them so long? He voiced his annoyance. Why should there be any formalities in an enemy's execution? If it were up to me, that wretched Toto's head would be on a pike by now. Britannia's ways are far different from our own, Starscream. Dreadwing said as he stood stoically at the edge of the building, observing the area. This is their way of execution and we cannot change that. Starscream growled. Why we continue to work with these fools is beyond me. Dreadwing said nothing in response as he glanced downward toward the window where his friend was likely facing a difficult decision. He didn't know the details, but he understood Suzaku had a history with Toto, so it probably wasn't easy for him. Lloyd had just finished signing probably the 5th paper before, yet another form was handed to him. Wah, you need my signature again. He asked the official as he, Cecile, and Suzaku sat on the coach together, with Gino, Anya, Nonette, and Monica standing around them. Even though Princess Cornelia ordered this, there are still some formalities to be followed. The official replied. A change of executioner is the most exceptional of circumstances. Gino looked absolutely bored out of his mind. Buddy, you've already made him sign 5 papers already. Can't we just go down there and pull the trigger? I mean, I blow up nightmares all the time and I don't fill out any paperwork. Killing on the battlefield is a different situation than a formal execution. Anya said robotically as she kept looking through her cell phone's photo album. As they continued to talk, Cecile, Nonette, and even Monica looked at Suzaku with sympathetic expressions as his own eyes shook. He was being ordered to execute his former teacher, who was almost something of a second father to him in his childhood. He had nothing but absolute respect for the man, even if they were now on opposite sides. He had already killed his father, now he was going to kill his sensei too. Suddenly, a loud explosion rang through the air, shaking Suzaku out of his distressed thoughts and startling everyone. What's going on? Nonette exclaimed. An explosion appears to have occurred. Anya said as she pointed to the window where they saw a large fire and smoke and had already multiple sirens going off. Good, now we're free of this hellish paperwork. Lloyd said. Finally. Some action. Gino exclaimed with an excited grin. More than 24 Sutherlands poured out of the facility and made their way to the massive hole in the prison's outer wall that was blown up from one of Wheeljack's grenades. Out of the smoke poured the vehicle modes of RC, Ironhide, Cliffjumper, Wheeljack, and Bulkhead, all accompanied by the Gurren Mk2, the Gekka pre-production, and the 4 Gekkas piloted by the 4 Holy Swords, and just like the red and blue nightmares, each of the Gekas had the Autobot Black Knight emblem etched onto their shoulders. The Gekas were the first to attack as they each drew a revolving blade katana as they immediately got to work, cutting down the frontmost Sutherlands with little effort. "Colonel, we're coming to save you," Chiba said as she wore a yellow Black Knight pilot suit. "These Gekas are awesome, way superior to Beret," Asahina stated with a grin as he and his other two comrades wore gray pilot suits. "Yeah, you got that right," Urabe agreed with his own grin. "Come on guys, let's not let them have all the fun," Cliffjumper said as he shot directly at a group of 3 Sutherlands that fired at him with their rifles. Cliffjumper transformed and dealt a powerful punch to decapitate the middle Sutherland before sweeping his feet to trip up the 2 surrounding him right as he fired his Energon blasters to obliterate their heads and render them immobile. RC rolled in her motorcycle mode toward 2 Sutherlands that shot at her, which she expertly maneuvered around before sliding underneath the legs of one of them right as she transformed and opened fire with her Energon blasters at their backs to turn them both into scrap metal in seconds. A 3rd Sutherland was about to shoot at RC, but the Gurren suddenly appeared in front of it to knock the rifle out of its hands with its knife before it reached out with its Surger claw to grab the Sutherland's head before Colin activated the Surger, causing the nightmare to explode. Ironhide had transformed as he activated his large Energon cannons and opened fire at a depot that had 6 Sutherlands already pouring out of it. Already those 6 Sutherlands had been destroyed in explosive fashion as Ironhide resumed his fire into the depot, and with a few more devastating shots, the depot itself had been completely obliterated. The Wrecker trio saw another depot to neutralize as 10 Sutherlands total were already rolling out. "I got the depot, you guys cover me," Wheeljack stated, while still in his vehicle mode. "You got it, Jackie," Bulkhead responded as he drove up toward the Sutherlands with raised Geka pre-production right by his side. Bulkhead took point as he drove directly into the group of Sutherlands that already opened fire. He immediately transformed and formed his mace in his right hand, which he used to obliterate one Sutherland with one swing before swinging it around him to destroy 2 more. The remaining 7 tried to gain some distance, but this proved to be a mistake as Rai zoomed in with his blue nightmare and used his katana to cut down 2 more before using his radiant wave surger to obliterate a 3rd. Bulkhead then formed his cannon in his left hand to blast away the remaining 4 with only 2 shots. Already Wheeljack had driven into the depot where at least a dozen more Sutherlands were being prepared. He popped open his trunk to throw out one of his grenades before driving back outside. He transformed once he made enough distance before pulling out his trigger and pressing the button. The entire depot, and most of the building above, had been completely destroyed. It was a miracle that the tower didn't topple over. "So, what do you guys think of the Autobots now?" Rai asked over the communication to the 4 holy swords. "I like what I see." Urabe never lost his grin. "Most impressive," Senba added. "Looks like Britannia might have to rethink their future," Asahina also said as he cut down another Sutherland. Chiba said nothing but was more than a little impressed as she smirked and came back to back with Colin's Gurren to cut down 5 Sutherlands that tried to surround them, while RC provided some covering fire to shoot down 2 more incoming Sutherlands. The Ark, the bridge. Ratchet and Fixit continued to monitor the situation as the entire fight was being shown on the main screen. Shirley, Ogi, Tamaki, Katase, and several other Black Knights, along with Kagaya watched as well along with Rockshata and her team. Tamaki gave a happy sigh as he saw the Autobots and 6 Black Knight nightmares make short work of the Britannian forces. "Ya know, I could watch this with some popcorn and a beer. It's no wonder Britannia's so afraid of the Autobots," Rockshata commented. "They make nightmares look like cheap toys." "Yes, the Autobots are amazing, aren't they?" Shirley added with a smile. "Not to mention our pilots have plenty of skill as well." Kagaya also added. "You must be quite proud of Colin especially," she said to Ogi in particular. "Yes, I'm nothing short of proud." Ogi smiled as he saw the Gurren, RC, and Cliffjumper work together so fluently. "How come you're not out there with them, Doctor?" Rockshata asked nonchalantly as she glanced at Ratchet. "I'm a medic, not a warrior," Ratchet quickly said. "I'll fight if I have to, but don't expect me to be at the vanguard." "So, when are we going to see these Decepticons?" Rockshata asked. "I'm curious as to see how the Gurren and Gekas fare against them. We have data recorded from our previous encounters with the Decepticons if you're interested." Fix-It offered, not to mention information regarding the Decepticons themselves. Later, Rockshata said as she didn't take her eyes off the fight. Back inside the prison, the guard had pointed his pistol at Toto as he began to open his cell door. My superiors have just ordered you'd be unofficially executed before you're busted out of here. Any last words? It's a life I gave up once before. Toto said with acceptance. It's worth nothing. Don't be so quick to throw it away. Suddenly, the wall collapsed on the guard, killing him in the process. Toto was nothing short of surprised as he saw the culprit responsible was the Autobot scout Bumblebee who broke his way into the building, alongside the commander-type Barai piloted by the masked revolutionary himself who revealed himself as he began to lower himself down from his nightmare. Zero. Toto acknowledged. Kiyoshiro Toto. Zero began. The only Japanese who 7 years ago brought the mighty Britannian forces to their knees in defeat. You mean Itsukishima? You want me to perform a miracle for you as well? Toto questioned. That was no miracle. Zero argued. It ended in victory because it was based on excellent intelligence work. That's why we want you. I pledged my loyalty to General Kates, now that he's alive. Zero quickly said, much to Toto's surprise. Despite Britannia trying to spread the false word of his death, Tatewaki Kates, along with the remainder of the Japan Liberation Front are now part of the Black Knights working alongside the Autobots. That includes the Four Holy Swords. Nagisa Chiba, Shogo Asahina, Ryoga Senba, and Kosetsu Urabe, all of them are outside right now, here solely to save you. Are you really ready to throw your life away and let them all down? You must take responsibility. Responsibility for the miracle that you made. Toto's look turned into a small smirk before he chuckled. So, it is you. I've been wondering if it were the case, and now it seems I know for certain. Zero removed his mask to reveal the smiling face of Lelouch. Figured it out, huh? It wasn't all that difficult, Lelouch. Toto commented as the young revolutionary worked to cut the bindings around the old soldier. For one thing, you're still as dramatic as ever. I suppose so. Lelouch said as he allowed Toto to stand up. So, who's your friend? He asked, referring to the yellow Autobot present. His name is Bumblebee. Lelouch introduced. He'd introduce you himself, but he's unable to speak properly. Sorry about that, Bumblebee said in bleeps for emphasis. I trust you're not just here to recruit me into helping you defeat Britannia. Toto said as he became serious. Those Decepticons we saw at Naratia. Indeed, Lelouch confirmed. It's a long story and I plan to give you the full explanation after we leave this place, but for now, will you help us? Just the Autobots and myself have already inspired a great deal of hope throughout Japan, we even have more than a few Britannians working with us. But with you on our side, the miracle worker alongside Zero and Optimus Prime, we'll cause more than just a simple headache for Britannia and the Decepticons. He offered his hand. Toto smirked as he shook Lelouch's gloved hand. I'm in. Clovis Memorial Museum. And now for the highlight of today's events. The curator announced. Princess Euphemia will select the grand prize winner. He handed the princess a white flower on a gold plating. The work of art upon which you place this flower will be deemed the winner, Your Highness. Euphemia turned around, her eyes immediately setting upon the largest painting of her father. This was the one everyone expected her to deem the winner, but she couldn't bring herself to do it. Meanwhile, back at the prison, all the Autobots, as well as Colin, Rai, and the Four Holy Swords have made short work of the nearly all the Britannian forces stationed there. The entire facility was in a state of complete chaos as fires and the remains of over 100 Sutherlands were scattered throughout the area. The gate toward the most inward part of the facility had been blown open as the 6 Nightmares and 5 Autobots in their vehicle modes rolled out in the smoke. Several more Sutherlands attempted to stop them, but much like the rest before, they were quickly destroyed with the expert piloting of the Black Knights or the superior fighting prowess of the Autobots. Once the area had been completely cleared, a single ground bridge portal had opened up, allowing the vehicle mode of Optimus Prime to roll in with a large trailer attached. All the Autobots and Black Knight Nightmares regrouped around Optimus's Zero's commander-type Barai, and Bumblebee's vehicle mode drove out of the prison, leaving a large explosion behind in their wake. Optimus came to a stop as the back door to his trailer opened to reveal a customized Gekka. This nightmare was mostly black with two long red hair-like appendages on the back of its head as it carried its own katana-like weapon. Like all the other nightmares present, it had the metallic emblem of the Autobot Black Knight Alliance embedded on its chest. Bumblebee and Zero's Burai regrouped with their allies as all the Autobots transformed and formed a perimeter with Colin's Gurren and Ray's Blue Gekka around the trailer as Optimus is well transformed. Inside the perimeter, Zero's Burai came to a halt as his cockpit faced the new customized Gekka. It opened to reveal Toto, who stood up as his comrades in the Four Holy Swords greeted him from their own Gekkas. "Colonel," Chiba exclaimed with relief at seeing him again. "Welcome back, Colonel Toto." Asahina greeted with a smile. "Thank you. You've all worked so hard for this." Toto humbly thanked his comrades. "No effort at all, sir." Senba grinned slightly. "Yeah, these Britannians were a piece of cake." Urabe smirked. "Toto the miracle worker, it's a privilege." Cliffjumper greeted as the other Autobots smiled. "Welcome to the family. Let's wreck some bad guys." Wheeljack gave a thumbs up as Toto nodded before turning to the Autobot leader. "Optimus Prime, it's an honor to finally meet you face to face." The miracle worker greeted. "The honor is all mine, Kiyoshiro Toto." Optimus nodded with a small smile, which Toto returned before climbing into his new black Gekka. "Cooperate with Zero and the Autobots, eliminate the remaining forces here," he ordered. "Roger." The Four Holy Swords all said at the same time. Lelouch smirked triumphantly in his Burai. Now all the tasks at hand have been cleared. But still, this felt a little too easy. His smile fell as his gut told him that they weren't out of the woods yet. If my past experiences are any indication, it's never easy. Almost on K, Lelouch, Optimus, and all the others got an emergency alert from Ratchet. Arc-to-Zero and Optimus were reading multiple Decepticon signals incoming. Right as that alert was given, a ground bridge portal opened up 100 feet from the area as the vehicle modes of Breakdown and Knockout drove out, alongside Arachnid in her helicopter mode before they transformed into their robot modes. Right as the ground bridge deactivated, 5 unique nightmares consisting of the Tristian, Mordred, Galatian, Florence, and last, but not least, the Lancelot, rolled up as well. Finally, 6 flying vehicle modes came soaring down from the sky before they transformed and landed in the middle of the gathered group of enemies consisting of Soundwave, Dreadwing, Thundercracker, Skywarp, Starscream, and even Megatron himself. "Megatron." Optimus glared as his optics narrowed. "Looks like we got company." Bulkhead commented as he formed maces in both his hands, and the other Autobots readied their Energon blasters. Colin and Rai readied their nightmares as the redhead glared at Arachnid, while Rai had a serious yet concerned expression upon seeing the Lancelot. Megatron chuckled. "You didn't think it'd be that easy, did you?" However, Lelouch still maintained his smirk inside his Burai. "Don't think this will be like Naratia. This time, we're ready." Clovis Memorial Museum. Euphemia had still not declared a winner. Everyone expected her to pick the painting of her father, but she wanted to pick a different one. "Please, Your Highness, it's time for you to decide. We can't wait any longer," the curator urged in a whisper. "I know, but Euphy's indecision however was interrupted by a reporter's cell phone, but it wasn't just his. One by one, all the journalists and reporters' phones rang, surprising Euphemia and even Darlton. A soldier quickly ran up to Darlton and whispered something to him that he didn't expect to hear. The Autobots. Megatron fired his fusion cannon at the charging Optimus, who deflected each blast with a blade before tackling Megatron to send him crashing back quite a distance away. The Decepticons retaliated with Energon blasts at the conjoined group of Autobots and Black Knights, combined with Varus shots from the Lancelot, Mordred, and Galatian. However, Ironhide was able to intercept the Varus blats with his own Energon cannons, as the Autobots returned fire. "Zero, I trust you have the most experience dealing with these Decepticons, as well as these particular units." Toto contacted him. "What would you suggest?" "First, I need you all to do exactly as I say." Lelouch began. "We're splitting off into groups. RC with the Gurren, Bulkhead with the Gekka pre-production, Cliffjumper with Chiba, Wheeljack with Urabe, Ironhide with Senba and Asahina, Bumblebee sticks with me. Split off, force them separate. Do not, I repeat, do not engage Megatron. Let Optimus deal with him." "Roger." All the Autobots and Black Knights responded. The aforementioned group split off into separate directions, forcing the enemy to give in pursuit. Lelouch opened a private communication channel so that only Toto could hear him. "Toto, listen to me. That white and gold nightmare, the Lancelot, it's Suzaku." Lelouch revealed. "Cripple the nightmare, but don't kill him." "I understand," Toto said as he shot his Gekka straight toward the Lancelot. Suzaku fired his Varus rifle at the incoming black Gekka, but Toto expertly avoided each shot as he drew Nightmare's his revolving blade katana and sliced the Varus rifle in half, forcing Suzaku to activate the Blaze Luminous shield to defend himself. "Oh my," Lloyd observed the fights occurring from a tower with Cecile. "So, we get to watch a brawl between the Autobots and the Black Knights against the Decepticons and the Knights of the Round. I'd never thought we'd be indulged to such a treat. Those nightmares the Black Knights are using, they're not like the ones we've seen from them so far." Cecile observed with worry. "You're not saying my precious Lancelot will lose, are you?" Lloyd asked. "Given that Suzaku hasn't had much of a winning streak against the Autobots, I can't say it's an impossibility." Cecile commented. "The Ark. So, those are the Decepticons?" Rockshata asked as she, the Black Knights present, as well as Ratchet and Fix-It watched the fights play out from the bridge's main screen. "Yeah, that's them all right." Ogi nodded with confirmation. "And it seems even Megatron has decided to step in as well." Ratchet observed. Shirley gave a small gasp as she saw the largest Decepticon locked in a duel with Optimus. "That's Megatron," she almost screamed, never seeing anything more terrifying. Same could be said for Ogi, even Tamaki as they gulped, having seen what the Decepticon leader could do first hand. Even Kates and Kagaya sweated with nervousness a bit, while Rockshata just observed with a causal look in her eyes. Clovis Memorial Museum. All the reporters and journalists looked in awe and amazement as the large television screen showed the epic battle that was taking place between the Autobots and Black Knights against the Decepticons and Britannia's elite. Though it seemed they were more or less cheering for the Britannian pilots than anything else. Euphemia looked on with worry for both Suzaku and Nonette. Darlton discreetly contacted his forces. "Listen, send in everything we've got. Lend support to Kururugi and the Knights, and then make the report we're wiping out the terrorists. Also, watch your back around the Decepticons, expect a possible betrayal." The soldier then turned to the screen with a hardened expression. Why would Megatron and the Decepticons reveal themselves now of all times? If he's planning something, I'll personally make him regret it. Optimus clashed and parried his right blade against Megatron's own sword before delivering a kick right to Megatron's face to knock him back a bit, but Megatron was quick to recover as he parried his sword against Optimus' blade strike before slugging Optimus across his face, and another in his abdomen before delivering a powerful uppercut to Optimus' jaw to send him flying back. Megatron then saw how the Autobot and Black Knight forces were splitting off. Divide and conquer, he thought before contacting his most loyal subordinate. "Soundwave, I'll let you handle this," he told his surveillance chief as he clashed with Optimus yet again. Soundwave hung back away from the battle as he followed his leader's instructions. His faceplate lit up as he showed the ID signals of the Decepticons and Britannian Knights while delivering the data to them wirelessly to silently tell them what to do. Gino received the data on his Nightmares console. "Splitting up, huh? Alright, I'm game." He piloted his Tristian as he and Knockout ran to engage Cliffjumper and Chiba. Bulkhead and Rai together engaged the hulking breakdown. RC and Colin clashed with Arachnid and Nonette in the Galician. Wheeljack drew his swords as he engaged in a sword duel with Dreadwing, with Urabe providing backup against Monica's Florence. And finally, Anya fired the Mordred's shoulder-mounted Varus, with Thundercracker and Skywarp opening fire with their Energon blasts as Ironhide's vehicle mode, along with Senba and Asahina, expertly maneuvered around the enemy fire to engage them in close combat. At the same time, Soundwave deployed Rumble and Frenzy from his sides as they quickly ran across the battlefield, shooting directly towards Zero's Barai, which remained stationed at its current spot, only to be intercepted by Bumblebee as he opened fire to keep the two Minicons at bay. "Zero, take a look at Soundwave," Bumblebee told him as he engaged Rumble and Frenzy. Lelouch did just that as he saw Soundwave hanging back. "He's not engaging, but rather he's coordinating the battle just as I am." He remembered the Autobots telling him about Soundwave, being Megatron's top soldier as well as a tactical genius. Despite that, however, Lelouch smirked. Still, I know these Decepticons, I also know how the Knights of the Round operate, I've seen the Lancelot fight enough to know how it works, not to mention Gino's always been blathering on about his and the other Knights' fight at school, guess them being part of the student council actually had its benefits. The Decepticons and the Knights of the Round are indeed skilled warriors, but they all have one glaring weakness, their lack of unity. Lelouch then worked on coordinating with his soldiers as he contacted each of them. Colin, RC, the Galician is a near-exact copy of the Lancelot. Its pilot always goes in for close-quarters combat. The Galician swung its MVS at the Gurren, which blocked its Surger Claw just as Colin activated it. This caused the sword to boil and melt before exploding. RC then leapt from the Gurren's shoulders to deliver a roundhouse straight to the Galician's face before flipping over and landing behind it to cripple its back legs with precise energon shots. Nonet grunted before the Gurren swiped its feet, gaining added momentum from the land spinners, to knock it down. Arachnid was about to leap and pounce straight at the Gurren, but RC had already planned for this as she leapt into the Gurren's claw, which Colin shot up to catapult RC right into the air to intercept Arachnid with a flying kick. Before she could even land on the ground, Colin intercepted Arachnid with a pulsing surger. She raised its claw to fire a projectile in the form of a red energy ball that blasted Arachnid to send her flying and skidding across the ground. Breakdown ran directly toward Bulkhead and Rai as he tried to slam his hammer down, forcing the two to scatter just as Zero contacted them. Bulkhead, Rai, you know Breakdown is a close-distance fighter. Rai, you keep him busy from a distance and divert his attention, while Bulkhead comes up on his blind spot. They did just that as Rai maneuvered his blue Gekka around Breakdown and opened fire with his arm-mounted gun. This seemed to irritate Breakdown as he shot at the Blue Nightmare. Fortunately, Rai was able to steer it back and keep his distance. With his focus squarely on the Gekka pre-production, it left him vulnerable for Bulkhead to rush up on his blind spot with a mace attack right to Breakdown's face, sending him to the ground where Rai was waiting as he quickly shot the Gekka pre-production at the tumbling Decepticon, while reading his Radiant Wave Surger to deliver a Surger projectile right into Breakdown's falling face. This created a large explosion that sent Breakdown flying straight up before he came tumbling back down hard, leaving a large crater where he landed. Cliffjumper came back to back with Chiba's Gekka as she used her revolving blade katana to block an MVS strike from Gino's Tristian while Cliffjumper shot with his Energon blasters to keep Knockout at bay. Cliffjumper, Chiba, Zero contacted them. Knockout will try to keep his distance, he values his paint job more than anything else, take advantage of that. Inversely, the Tristian is a close-range nightmare. Let's switch things up. Cliffjumper told Chiba as they swapped opponents, surprising Gino as Cliffjumper dealt a slug to the Tristian's face before transforming and driving away with the Tristian in pursuit. At the same time, Chiba shot her Gekka straight for Knockout as he tried to swipe at her with his buzz saw, but she was quick to maneuver around him and slice at his side, causing Knockout to grunt as Chiba came to a stop behind him. Knockout gave an audible gasp as he saw the gaping gash across his paint job. Oh, you're gonna pay for that. Knockout appeared to have lost all common sense as he rushed at the Nightmare, where Chiba was able to take advantage of his anger, ducking and maneuvering her Nightmare around his relentless buzzsaw slashes before slicing at his backside and knocking him down. And I thought Britannians were narcissistic. Chiba thought. Cliffjumper continued to drive with Gino in pursuit before the red Autobot turned around and gunned right for him. Cliffjumper transformed and used the momentum gathered to deliver a powerful punch to knock the Tristian down. What's the matter, Gino? That all you got? Cliffjumper challenged as he took a stance similar to a professional boxer. Oh, don't worry, I've got plenty of fight in me. Gino smirked as he pulled his Tristian up and tried to slice at Cliffjumper with his MVS, but Cliff was able to maneuver around each slice and deal a punch to the Tristian's hull. But with Gino so easily distracted with Cliff, it left him vulnerable to Chiba as she zoomed at him from behind and sliced at the Tristian's legs with her katana to cut the Nightmare down, right as Cliff dealt an uppercut to the Tristian's failing face, letting the severed upper half fall back. Nick of time. Nice job. Cliffjumper gave a thumbs up in Chiba's direction as she smirked inside her Nightmare's cockpit. Wheeljack swung his swords in fluent fashion to strike at and parry the equally fast strikes from Dreadwing's own sword, while Urabe maneuvered around the area in his Gekka, slashing at Monika's Florence as she parried his katana strikes against her arm-mounted MVS claws. Just like with everyone else, Zero contacted them to relay instructions. Dreadwing is a tricky one, he's skilled at close and long-ranged combat. Wheeljack, you keep him distracted as Urabe maneuvers around to attack from behind. Once he's distracted, Wheeljack will work to quickly disarm the Florence. Be sure to sever the arms before moving to the legs. Once that is done, attack Dreadwing together. Got it, Wheeljack stated as he continued to clash blades with Dreadwing. Urabe broke off from his fight from Monika to gun straight for the blue Decepticon from behind. Dreadwing, behind you. Monika tried to warn, but Urabe already fired onto Dreadwing's back, drawing his attention away from Wheeljack, who transformed and gunned his way straight for the incoming Florence. Once he was close enough, the Wrecker transformed and flipped over Monika, while also slicing his blades at the Florence's arm joints faster than Monika could have blocked, severing the arms right as Wheeljack landed behind to sever the legs with his blades. Urabe maneuvered around Dreadwing as he fired with his Gekka's wrist-mounted gun. Though the magnesium bullets did some damage, it wasn't fatal. Dreadwing grunted as he drew his massive cannon and attempted to fire at Urabe, who could just barely dodge. Wheeljack's vehicle mode shot at Dreadwing, who turned around to shoot at him, but once he was close enough, Wheeljack transformed and threw the grenade toward him. Shoot it, Wheeljack called to Urabe. The Gekka opened fire and hit the grenade just as it flew in front of Dreadwing's face, causing an explosion that sent the largest seeker flying and crashing into a wall. Not so tough now, Khan. Urabe smirked as he rolled next to Wheeljack, who smirked in response. You know, I think you and I are gonna get along just okay. The Wrecker commented. Senba and Asahina kept their distance from Thundercracker and Skywarp as the pair hovered in the air and fired with their Energon blasters, but the two holy swords proved fast enough in their Gekkas to avoid the shots as Ironhide kept his own distance by firing his Energon cannons at the Mordred, which was able to shield itself from the blast as Anya activated its Blaze Luminous shield to cover its front side. Anya then fired her shoulder-mounted Hadron cannons, which Ironhide rolled to avoid. Zero soon contacted this group as well. The Mordred fights solely at long distance, though it's heavily armored, it's vulnerable at the joints. Use chaff smoke to blind it before moving in. Ironhide, I'll leave you to deal with Skywarp and Thundercracker. Understood. Ironhide nodded before he transformed and drove to meet with Asahina and Senba, who passed him in their Gekkas. Once they were close enough to the Mordred, they released a smokescreen from behind their nightmares as they shot past the Gekka. Anya's stoic face contorted that of confusion. I am blind. My proximity missiles have nothing to lock onto. This isn't a normal smokescreen, she soon grunted in surprise as the two Gekkas came at the Mordred from behind, using their katanas to slice off the Mordred's arms before swerving around to sever the legs at the joints. Hey, he's really doing it. Asahina commented with an impressed smile. Ironhide rolled out of the way of an Energon blast from Skywarp before shooting at his right wing to disorient his flight and send him crashing to the ground. Thundercracker growled as he shot at the veteran Autobot with his arm blade drawn, but Ironhide had seen this kind of move before as he was able to maneuver past the slice, grab Thundercracker's arm, and use his own momentum against him to spin and toss him into the recovering Skywarp to send them both skidding across the ground. Lelouch couldn't help but smirk at his friends and comrades' success. They were actually putting the Decepticons and Knights of the Round on the run. He glanced at Soundwave through his nightmare's screen. Lelouch then pictured himself and the silent Decepticon having a game of chess as they maneuvered their own pieces in the places they wanted, but it would seem that Lelouch had the upper hand here. Bumblebee tried to literally stand his ground as he saw Rumble activate his piledrivers to send a tremor in his direction to slightly knock the scout off his feet as Frenzy leapt onto Bumblebee while he was down and tried to drive his plasma blade into his shoulder. We still owe you payback for Count, Autobot. Frenzy stated as he tried to slice at Bumblebee, but the Autobot scout quickly transformed to shake Frenzy off before zooming directly at the surprised Rumble. The Minicon couldn't react to Bumblebee's speed enough as the scout swerved his rear to slam his rear end right into Rumble to send him skidding across the ground. Meanwhile, Suzaku continued to press the attack against Toto in his custom Gekka, parrying his MVS against the katana, but it seemed that Toto had anticipated nearly every one of Suzaku's moves as he sliced at him, but Suzaku was able to block it with the Lancelot's Blaze Luminous shield before leaping back to gain some distance. Stand down Kururugi. I'll deal with him. Starscream contacted Suzaku. You just go for Zero. Suzaku's eyes narrowed as his nightmare's screen locked onto Zero's Barai, which appeared to be vulnerable as Bumblebee was still dealing with Soundwave's Minicons. Yes, Commander Starscream. The Lancelot shot toward Zero's location. Zero, he's heading your way. Toto warned the young revolutionary. Colonel, behind you. Chiba called to him, which proved to be the warning he needed as he shot his black Gekka out of the way from where a missile had just blown up the spot he was previously at. The one responsible was none other than Starscream in his jet mode. The Seeker flew closer to the ground as he readied another missile attack. You know the phrase you humans say, payback is a bitch. He shot 2 more missiles at Toto, who actually sped his Gekka toward them and used his katana to slice through each missile, right before they exploded past them. He tried to slice at Starscream, only for the Seeker to maneuver around the slice in his jet mode before flying back into the sky. Zero backed his Barai away to avoid the Harkins shot at him by the Lancelot. However, the Lancelot leapt at the black Barai and was more than ready to deliver yet another spinning kick attack. Fortunately, the attack was diverted by RC, who quickly shot in her motorcycle form before leaping and transforming to tackle the White Nightmare to the ground. Suzaku grunted. Zero, why are you and the Autobots always getting in the way? ? However, right as the Lancelot stood back up, it was forced on the defensive as Colin shot her Gurren forward to clash its knife and Surger claw against Suzaku's dual pair of MVS. As they locked weapons, it left him vulnerable for RC to leap at him from the back. She drew her arm blades with the intent on severing the cockpit to disable the Lancelot, but Suzaku tried to react as he broke off from Colin to intercept RC's attack, but as she pulled back one arm blade she accidentally sliced off the roof of the cockpit. Damn it! It doesn't have an ejection block on it. Lloyd exclaimed with worry. Cecile was more than a little shocked by that revelation. What? You mean we didn't install one? As the Red Nightmare and Blue Fembot regrouped to stand protectively in front of Zero's Barai, they, as well as everyone else on the battlefield, saw the open cockpit to see the glaring Suzaku. The Ark. Is that Suzaku Kururugi? Katase exclaimed in shock as the other Black Knights were beyond shocked themselves. What? Ogi exclaimed. He's the pilot of that damn thing. Tamaki questioned. Ratchet winced, as did Fix-It. Shirley glanced at Kagaya with a surprised expression, who returned one of her own to the older girl. The 4 of them knew that if this fight was being broadcasted, it would mean that probably everyone in Japan was seeing it as well. Clovis Memorial Museum. The reporters and journalists were all more than a little shocked to see Suzaku Kururugi, the same one who was framed for the murder of Prince Clovis by the Purebloods, was the pilot of the Nightmare that had been fighting alongside the Knights of the Round. That's enough. Turn off the monitor, now. Darlton exclaimed. Wait, please. Euphemia stopped him. I'd like to watch it to the end. Optimus, optics widened upon seeing Suzaku's exposed face, however his attention was brought back toward Megatron as the Decepticon leader punched him to knock him back. Megatron tried to press the advantage with another punch, but Optimus was quick to catch the punch with one hand before trying to punch Megatron, who caught the Autobot leader's fist in response. The 2 locked hands as Optimus glared at his enemy. You shouldn't be so surprised, Optimus. Megatron spoke with an evil sneer, as if he could read Optimus' mind. After all, you have your own pawn in the form of Zero, it's only fair I acquire a pawn of my own. You're using him, manipulating him. Optimus glared. Try to tell him that if you wish, I doubt he'd believe you. Megatron continued to sneer. He reminds me quite a bit of you, Optimus. Or more specifically, Orion Pax. I wonder, if you'd stay by my side during the war, would this be your future as well? Optimus responded to that comment with a powerful headbutt to knock Megatron back. However, Megatron was quick to get back up and attack Optimus to keep him from getting to Suzaku. Despite the cockpit being sliced open, Suzaku gripped the controls to see the Lancelot was still functional. Good, I can still pilot. He was about to re-engage with both RC and the Gurren, but Toto's Gekka was quick to intercept him. I'll deal with this. Toto contacted the surprised duo. You take care of the flyer. RC and Colin both saw the incoming Starscream in his jet mode and understood. RC transformed and drove alongside the Gurren to intercept the incoming Decepticon Seeker. As the black Gekka locked with the white Lancelot, its cockpit opened to reveal Toto. "Do not do this, Suzaku." "Colonel Toto." Suzaku exclaimed with a gasp before his eyes narrowed. "So then, you want to live more than you want to follow your own principles. Do I disappoint you? Very well, then keep to your schedule and execute me," Toto stated, causing Suzaku to gasp. Lelouch immediately contacted the Ark. "Ratchet, is this fight being broadcasted?" "Yes, it is," Ratchet replied back in a grave tone, earning a scowl and a frustrated look from Lelouch. This was going to cause a number of issues for both him and Suzaku, from Japan's divided public all the way to the Black Knights. The Gurren and RC dodged another missile blast from Starscream's jet mode as the ground exploded in between them. Colin shot her /Harkins at Starscream, who was able to avoid them, but this was what she intended, as this put him in RC's line of sight as she delivered a precise Energon shot to his right wing, to send the Seeker spinning and crashing to the ground with a shrill scream. "Guess I know why they call him Starscream," Colin thought with a smirk. The Lancelot and the Gekka continued to wrestle as neither even made a move to kill the other. "What's wrong? That's the reason you're here, isn't it?" Toto questioned. "You've become a cowardly boy who's afraid of altering the status quo. Denying everything in our society is pointless," Suzaku argued. "Once I make them trust me, I'll have the power to change it." "Who are you talking about?" Toto questioned again. "Britannia or the Decepticons?" That caught Suzaku by surprise. "Do you really think either of them is truly helping the other? It's only a matter of time before they turn their weapons towards each other. And you'll have to make a choice." Before either of them could even make another move, Fixit's voice came as an alert through not just Toto's communications, but the other bots and Black Knights as well. "Warning! Multiple Britannian units incoming. Over 100 units total." All the Autobots and Black Knights present looked upward to see the fleet of Britannian aerial units, each one carrying 2 or more nightmares. Lelouch grunted in frustration. "Ratchet, prepare a ground bridge. All units, we're falling back. Withdraw immediately." It didn't take long for a ground bridge portal to open up behind the Barai, with Zero being the first one in. All the Autobots, save for Optimus, transformed and followed suit along with the 4 holy swords, Gurren, and Gekka. Optimus paid one last glare at Megatron, who only smirked. Optimus then transformed as he was among the last to drive into the ground bridge. Toto broke off his fight from Suzaku and drove toward the portal as well, but Suzaku tried to stop him. "Wait." However, Toto fired his Gekka's wrist-mounted gun to destroy one of the land spinners and immobilize it, allowing Toto to escape just as the ground bridge vanished. Clovis Memorial Museum. "Look, they're running," one reporter stated as they, Euphemia, and Darlton, all watched what had transpired. "He fought them off. The Black Knights and the Autobots. Even the Knights of the Round had trouble with those guys." Euphemia breathed a small sigh of relief. "Suzaku, well done. Damn traitor." That caught Euphemia, as well as Darlton, by surprise. Why won't he follow them? "'Cause they're 11s, like him. And he's got his own Autobots with him." As Euphemia heard all their voices of contempt, her own hands clenched as she still held the white flower in her hand. "Princess Euphemia?" Darlton asked upon seeing her expression. However, it wasn't just these people's doubts over this brave young man that she was angry over, it was the fact that Suzaku was still working with the Decepticons. She didn't blame Suzaku for that, but rather Megatron or anyone else who might have performed some form of underhanded scheme to get his allegiance. However, Euphemia might have a way to finally get him away from them. "All of you." She got the journalists' and reporters' attention. "I'll now answer the question you asked me earlier. You had inquired as to whom I had selected to serve as my knight, correct? The knight I have chosen will be the young man you see before you, Warrant Officer Suzaku Kururugi." As the Decepticons recovered, while Gino, Anya, Nonette, and Monica helped themselves out of the remains of their nightmares, Suzaku stood from the open cockpit of his Lancelot and stared off in the direction the Black Knights and Autobots had vanished. "Toto, I am your foe. Kururugi." He turned around in surprise to see an enraged Starscream marching toward him. "Explain to me why you did not execute him. You had Kiyoshiro Toto right in front of you. This could have been our chance to deal a death blow to Area 11's resistance, yet you allowed him to slip away. Why?" "Hold on a minute." Gino ran up with his fellow Knights of the Round right behind him. Those guys were plenty tough. I'm sure Suzaku did the best he could. You shut your mouth, human. Starscream exclaimed to Gino before turning back to Suzaku. This isn't the first time you've disobeyed orders and allowed the enemy to escape. Explain to me why you seem incapable of killing our foes. Because he has a soft spot for them. Arachnid said as she walked up to them, with Breakdown, Knockout, Thundercracker, and Skywarp behind her. What can you expect from the son of the former Prime Minister? Frankly, I'm surprised Britannia's even keeping you around and haven't just executed you because of your bloodline. Why would we do that? Gino questioned. Suzaku's never done anything wrong. Britannians seem to have a very skewed perspective on what's right and what's wrong. Thundercracker commented. What is that supposed to mean? Monica narrowed her eyes, along with Nonette. It means you guys kill countless people in those ghettos every day, but when a person who's not in the ghetto is killed, you all have a freaking spaz attack. Skywarp translated. It's because the humans in the ghettos are 11s. Knockout said. Though personally, I don't see much of a difference. Yeah, as far as we can tell, Britannians, 11s, Black Knights, you're all the same. Breakdown agreed. Just a bunch of squishy little weaklings trying to act tough. I think we've heard quite enough from you. Nonette exclaimed with a glare. What are you gonna do? Arachnid teased. You got no nightmares, you're all helpless. As Suzaku continued to listen to the knights arguing with the Decepticons, Toto's words replayed through his mind. Do you really think either of them is truly helping the other? It's only a matter of time before they turn their weapons towards each other. And you'll have to make a choice. He was about to call for them to stop when someone else beat him to it. That is enough. Megatron marched toward them with Dreadwing and Soundwave by his side, the later having retrieved Frenzy and Rumble. I thought I made it clear how much I do not tolerate infighting. He glanced at the Seekers and Arachnid in particular, causing them to wince. And this division is what is allowing our enemies to succeed. However, I will agree with Starscream this once, Suzaku. Megatron cast a glance on the Japanese youth. You cannot avoid this forever. When the time comes to kill your enemy, you must do so without hesitation, or else risk the consequences. Suzaku looked toward Dreadwing, who could only respond with a small nod as he silently agreed with Megatron. Suzaku could only look down slightly. I understand, Lord Megatron. Good. You and the Knights will allow the Britannians to pick you up, see to it your nightmares are repaired as quickly as possible. Megatron ordered. Decepticons, return to the Nemesis. Yes, my liege. Starscream reluctantly bowed with his companions as Soundwave opened a ground bridge portal, allowing all the Decepticons to step inside. However, Megatron stopped just before the portal before he whispered to Soundwave. You are certain this fight was broadcasted? Soundwave gave a nod, causing Megatron to sneer. Good. Flashback, the Nemesis. Megatron spoke alone with Soundwave on the bridge of their mighty warship. Given Lelouch's history with this Toto, as well as the influence from Optimus, it is likely that our enemy will seek to rescue him. If in the event that happens, we will join in the fight. However, Soundwave, I want you to see to it that this battle is broadcasted nationwide. Soundwave nodded in understanding. We will allow Charles to deal with the fallout from this. Megatron continued. Perhaps his reaction may give us some insight as to what he and Victor may be planning. You have confirmed that he is alive, correct? Soundwave's visor turned on as he presented data in regard to Victor Z. Britannia's apparent death, and despite his official record claiming him to be dead, no remains were ever recovered, which was all the proof Megatron needed to know that Victor was indeed alive somewhere. Good. Depending on how severe their transgression is, we may need to take a more active role in this world. Megatron stated with a serious and ambitious look in his red eyes. End flashback. Right as Megatron left with Soundwave, and the ground bridge portal vanished, Suzaku descended down from the damaged Lancelot to be greeted by the 4 knights of the round to ask if he was alright, or in Gino's case, to congratulate him for being the only nightmare pilot to have a functional nightmare. However, what nobody appeared to notice was that they weren't alone. Standing on top of one of the buildings was Vivi, who had witnessed the entire fight play out. The Ark. The Black Knights and Autobots had returned to the Autobot ship, their mission being completed as they rescued Toto. However, despite everyone being happy about having the miracle worker by their side, they seemed more surprised with the revelation that Suzaku was the pilot of the Lancelot. All save for Colin and Rai, as they met up with Shirley and Kagaya, along with RC, Cliffjumper, and Bulkhead. They all exchanged nervous looks as they could tell just how much trouble this could cause for them. At the same time, Optimus, Lelouch, and Toto had met up with Ratchet and Fix-It privately on the bridge of the ship. "So, how long have you known Suzaku was the pilot of that particular nightmare?" Toto asked. "Ever since Shinjuku," Optimus confirmed. "Well, technically speaking, we only learned of Suzaku's status as the Lancelot's pilot a few days after Shinjuku." Fix-It corrected, only to receive somewhat glaring looks from Lelouch and Ratchet. "But, perhaps that's not important right now." "I see," Toto said. He noticed a look on Lelouch's face, one that was easy for him to read. "You believe you can somehow get him on our side?" That earned a surprised look from the young revolutionary. "Don't act so surprised, you're not the only one who can read people, Lelouch." "Yes, that is my hope," Lelouch confessed. "He's a good person, the one to blame is Megatron for manipulating him. While Megatron takes the blame for that, Suzaku himself still has quite a bit to answer for," Ratchet said. "Indeed," Optimus agreed. "Toto, we are also aware of the truth in regards to Genbu Kururugi's death." That took Toto by surprise. "Did Kagaya tell you?" "She confirmed it," Optimus replied. "Someone else told us." "Who?" Toto's eyes narrowed, not liking the idea of that particular information being leaked. "It's a long story, one that actually entails of how I became acquainted with the Autobots." Lelouch began as he told Toto the whole story. He told him about the war for Cybertron, why the Decepticons were here, what happened in Shinjuku, and even about CC and his Geass. And this is the end of part 13 of this What If. I hope you guys like it. Do not forget to leave a comment down below and subscribe to the channel.